Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto is the son of Gaia Olympians. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Kyoka, Suigetsu, Totsuka and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. The immortal son of the earth. Throughout the eons that Zeus existed, he had only truly been in love twice and he married both women at different points in his life. One of them, of course, was his wife of many thousands of years, Hera, the goddess of familial love, marriage, motherhood and women. The other woman, on the other hand, was not nearly as well known as his official wife. Her name was Metis, Zeus's first wife. The Titan goddess aided the gods in the war against Kronos and his army, and Zeus married her right after the war. He truly loved her. But as history would suggest, power can break down any relationship. After Gaia, the primordial goddess of earth, prophesies that Metis will give birth to a son that will surpass Zeus in terms of power, his relationship with his wife was destined to fall apart. The need to preserve his throne and power over the world overpowered the love Zeus had for his wife, and the god of the sky committed an act that he still regrets to this day. He swallowed Metis when he discovered she was pregnant, trying his very all to prevent someone more powerful than him from being born, even if it would be his own son. Of course, after that whole ordeal, Athena was born from Zeus's head. At that moment, Zeus felt the anguish he had tried so very hard to bury. Metis was carrying a daughter, and because of his own desires he killed the woman he loved. Now Athena was the only thing that Zeus had of his late wife, and she will always be his most precious and loved daughter. The one thing Zeus never thought would happen was to meet a mortal woman that looked exactly like Metis did. Zeus moaned a lovely blonde woman as she hugged the muscular frame of her lover close. "I love you so much." The man on top of the woman grunted and moaned as he continued to thrust into his lover, trying to make her feel as good as possible. It baffled the god that the beautiful woman holding onto him even felt the same as Metis did all those millennia ago. They had the same brown eyes, same golden blonde hair, same voice, same scent. Even their skin felt the same against his skin. For the last 6 months he had been visiting this woman, Zeus had felt his suppressed feelings slowly bubble to up the surface, and he was falling in love with her, falling in love with Metis all over again. "I love you too, beautiful." Zeus kissed his lover tenderly on her lips as they continued to move in a synchronized form of dance that had been practiced since the existence of mankind. He made sure to avoid putting any weight on the woman's enlarged stomach, a sacred place that was carrying the child of a god. Like all his other lovers, Zeus found out the woman was pregnant with his child after their first night together, and now she was 6 months along. Only 3 more months and Zeus would have his youngest child. "Zeus!" cried the woman as she felt her climax take over her. Zeus grunted as he closed his eyes and moaned in pleasure, sending more of his godly essence into the chalice of his lover. "You are amazing," muttered the god as he rested his body on top of his lover, being mindful to shift his center weight to the bed so he wouldn't harm the baby. "I haven't felt like this in so long." The woman giggled in bliss as she pulled her lover down to a searing kiss. She wrapped her legs around Zeus and kept him on top of her, making sure to keep his essence inside her for as long as possible. Their tongues clashed as they expressed their mutual love toward one another. The only thing that mattered at that moment was their love, all their surroundings were completely ignored as they reveled in their bliss. The two lovers, locked inside their own bliss, were oblivious to the fact that they just fulfilled an ancient prophecy. And their union will bear fruit in just another 3 months. In the eons in which Zeus had existed, he had witnessed childbirth, at least the birth of his own children, countless times. Given that his wife was the goddess of motherhood, Zeus knew that he should be comfortable with the whole process, but he would hate it every single time. He hated to see the women he loved cry out in pain and terror. It pained his heart to see their beautiful faces contort into anguish. It was especially with the woman on the hospital right now, the one who looked exactly like Metis. Zeus had never actually seen Metis give birth since Athena emerged from his head after a literally head-splitting headache, and seeing the woman now made his heart wrench. "Her blood pressure is dropping rapidly," cried one of the nurses as the doctor continued trying to attend to her birth canal. "And her heart rate is decreasing." The chaos in the room was almost overwhelming, and Zeus, with his almost unlimited powers, felt absolutely impotent. There was nothing he could do to help his lover. He watched as his fragile human lover's life slip away from her as she continued to fight for their child's life. She was so tired she was barely conscious, but her muscles kept on pushing, as if she was using the last of her life force to give birth to her son. After another few minutes of screaming in pain, the sound of a baby crying could finally be heard, and Zeus finally exhaled a breath of relief. "It's a healthy boy," announced one of the nurses happily. The doctor quickly looked over the machines around the room and shook his head. "Don't relax yet. We still have to save the mother." Zeus felt his heart drop as his lover's pulse became weaker and weaker, but he gladly accepted the small bundle when the nurse handed him his son. Looking down at the crying baby, Zeus couldn't help but feel a warm tug in his heart. Even though he had had many children before, the baby in his arms felt more intimate. It was like Metis had come back and gave him another child. "We're losing her," cried the doctor as he ordered the preparation of the defibrillator and more supplies of the woman's blood type. The baby's cries became louder, as if he was trying to call out to his mother, and tears kept flowing from his piercing blue eyes that were not unlike his father. Zeus held his son close to his chest as he angrily looked at the failing body of his lover. He was seriously tempted to order Hades to keep her alive for the sake of their son, but he knew that as the leader of the Olympians he had to set an example, and no matter how much he wanted to. He had to put his responsibility as his highest priority. Then the sound of the electrocardiograph monitor turned from a series of steady beeps to a dull drone, and Zeus closed his eyes and turned away. Metis had been taken away from him again. With one final look on his lover's face, Zeus turned away with his son in his arms and disappeared in a flash of light. Like Odysseus when he was sailing across the Sea of Monster and was confronted by Charybdis and Scylla, Zeus was stuck in between a rock and a hard place. Looking at the calendar hanging on the wall of the coffee shop, Zeus sighed. It had been 45 years since he and his two brothers made an oath to not have any more half-blood children. The god resisted the urge to sigh as he thought back to his relationships in recent years and the 3 children he had sired. His infidelity may seriously alter the fate of Olympus. The slight sobbing of his son broke him out of his thoughts and made him lightly bounce the baby in his arms. Zeus smiled softly at the sight of his son sucking on his little thumb as he looked up with his electric blue eyes. The baby's head was still mainly bald, but hints of blonde hair could already be seen, a trait that he got from his mother. "Quiet down, young one," Zeus muttered as he lightly kissed his son's forehead, an affectionate gesture that he had almost never shown any of his children. "It'll be alright, my son. Your mother may have gone to the underworld, but you will be safe and will be in good hands." Zeus knew that he couldn't bring his demigod son to Olympus. Hera would make his life miserable, and there weren't any humans he could trust in the mortal world, so there was only one place he could possibly send his son. Using the mist to hide his presence from the other patrons in the coffee shop, Zeus vanished with a blast of lightning. In just a few seconds, the most powerful god on Olympus appeared on the other side of the planet. He was in Japan, one of the oldest foundations of Eastern civilization, and far away from most attention from Olympus. In the midst of the very busy city of Tokyo was actually one of the oldest deities of Western civilization. Hidden from view from the common mortal as a beautiful woman was actually the mother of the first 6 Olympians, Rhea. Ever since the start of the Fourth Age, all titans were banned from living on Olympus, and while Rhea was fighting for the gods and was the Olympians' beloved mother, she also had to abide to the fundamental rules. There wasn't much hard feeling from Rhea since she was getting tired to being a queen, and her children would visit her very often, especially Hestia and Demeter. Her grandson, Apollo, would also visit her at times, but she would see it as one of his excuses to visit Japan. It was ironic that one of mothers of Western civilization lived in Japan, but she had come to love her new home. She built many mansions and gardens all over Japan, all of them a mixture of Western and Eastern architecture. She would often move around from home to home and tend to all her garden in each home, which would always be very beautiful since she asked Demeter to make her properties bask in perpetual summer. "Hello, mother." Rhea, who was tending to her garden inside her Tokyo mansion, looked up to see her youngest son standing before her. She smiled and stood up to get a better look at him. Her eyes twinkling in a kind happiness that she would get every time she would see her children. She brushed a few strands of her luscious blonde hair behind her ear and clapped her hands clean. Well, what does my little boy need from his mother?" asked Rhea as she walked up to Zeus with a bright smile. Zeus sighed at his mother's attempts to embarrass him, but still smiled back at her. "Sorry for dropping in so abruptly, mother, but I have a favor to ask of you." Rhea's eyes trailed to the small bundle her youngest held in his arms and sighed. "Can we please sit down and talk?" "Sure, come on over here." Rhea led her son and who she assumed was her grandson to her dining table and started to pour 2 cups of tea. The aroma of the steaming tea calmed her senses. The tea leaves were a gift from Demeter a few weeks ago, and the water was a tribute from Poseidon. He had promised that it was the best quality of fresh water on the plant, so the tea really was the best in the world. "Judging by your expression, I assume that this is not just a casual visit to see your mother." Rhea smiled as she handed Zeus a cup of tea and sat down across from him. "No, but I really need your help." Zeus looked down at the quietly sleeping baby in his arms and showed him to his mother. "This is my youngest son, and I need you to help me raise him and avoid Hera from targeting him." Rhea looked amused and shook her head. "Once again you prove yourself to be a victim of your own hormones." The Titaness stood and walked over to her son and grandson, and her eyes softened when she saw how cute and peaceful her newest grandson looked when he was sleeping. "But he sure looks cute." Rhea gently lifted the baby from her son's arms and cradled him close to her chest. He is going to be quite handsome when he grows up. His mother passed away during childbirth and there is no mortal I can leave him with. Zeus sipped on his tea as he looked at his son being cradled by his grandmother. I don't want him to have a life of loneliness as an orphan and I can't have Hera messing with his mind like she did with Heracles. Rhea rubbed her cheek against her grandson's forehead and hummed as she held him as gently as she could. You seem to care about this little one here more than little Thalia. Does his mother have anything to do with it? Zeus sighed as he admitted that his mother knew him better than anyone else. His mother looked almost exactly like Metis. Rhea looked surprised and looked down at the baby again, really? Yes, but unfortunately she passed away. The Titaness now understood why her son would try to protect his son. Not only did Zeus truly love Metis, Hera had also been jealous of Metis when she was alive, and if she found out that the baby's mother looked like Metis, she would stop at nothing to ruin the child's life. Zeus knew that if Rhea protected his son, Hera would not notice his existence, and even if she did, she would not try to do anything rash in Rhea's presence. Please mother. Help me take care of my son. Rhea smiled and nodded. Of course I will take care of him. He's my grandson and I haven't raised a baby since I raised you millennia ago. Zeus smiled and nodded happily at his mother. But I should probably move to one of my newer homes so the others don't come finding me with this baby. Rhea had the ability to hide her presence by creating a barrier of emptiness around her property and she could very well hide from her children. He is mortal, so he should grow pretty quickly. Several decades for Rhea would feel like a couple of weeks considering she had lived for eons already. We'll have loads of fun together. Zeus nodded with a smile. Thank you mother, and when he is older you could also send him to the camp if you want to come out of hiding. I'm sure with you training him he would be able to protect himself from monsters. Not to mention that if Hera was oblivious to him the first decade of his life, she wouldn't suspect him to be a child of her husband. I know, and you don't have to worry Zeus. I'll be sure to take great care of my grandson. Zeus nodded again with a smile. I know mother, thank you for doing this for me. The god walked over to his son and ran his thumb lightly over his forehead, smiling at the small smile on his son's face, and back away. I will look forward to seeing him again, but I must go now. Rhea nodded before Zeus vanished with a flash of light, leaving his mother and son alone in the room. Rhea smiled down at the baby and kissed him softly on the head. You are a very lucky boy, little one. The baby started to stir and opened his eyes to see the beautiful lady holding him close. He didn't cry or squirm. He just tilted his head a little and looked up at his grandmother with his curious and beautifully blue eyes. Oh you are so cute. Rhea tickled the baby under his chin, making the baby giggle and squirm, his laughter sounding better than Mozart in Rhea's ears. The Titaness sat down on her couch and trailed loving kisses on the baby's head. It had been so long since she had taken care of a baby, and the little guy in her arms looked a lot like Zeus did when he was a baby, only this time there was no crazy titan trying to eat him. Oh right. Spoke Rhea to the giggling boy. We haven't named you yet. The baby waved his tiny arms around and rubbed his eyes as he babbled nonsense at his grandmother, his lips moving around like he had something really interesting to say. Rhea smiled at his antic and couldn't help but kiss him again as she walked around trying to find the right name for her little grandson. Then, after a few minutes, Rhea walked past her countertop and saw some leftover fish cake. Naruto, the Japanese word for fish cake, can also mean maelstrom, which was quite apt for a son of Zeus. Uzumaki Naruto. Uzumaki was a name Rhea gave herself when she first came to Japan. She had thought of it after her son, Poseidon, made a whirlpool out in the harbor to catch some fish for dinner and thought it sounded pretty good. Do you like it? From now on you will be Uzumaki Naruto, my cute little grandson. The baby, now named Naruto, continued to babble and waved his hands around in the air, seemingly happy about his name. Alright. Exclaimed Rhea and she snapped her fingers. Now let's get us to our new home. Unknown to Zeus and Rhea, back in the United States, inside the hospital in which Naruto was born, something very unusual was happening inside the morgue. In the freezing room, one of the many steel cabinets was open and the corpse within was exposed. It was the woman who looked exactly like Metis and she was lying motionlessly inside the space, but something was changing. Instead of having blonde hair she had black hair the same color as tilled soil. Her face was still beautiful, but her features were different. And her hospital robe started to deteriorate and it slowly resembled a cloak that seemed to be made of back dirt. Suddenly, the body of the woman shuddered and a light rumble shook the room. You have sealed your fate, Zeus. A melodic but extremely powerful voice shivered through the room. There was a slight hint of pride in the voice, as if the owner of the voice was boasting a recent victory. No one can defy my prophecies. Under the appearance of Metis, I gave birth to our child and he shall become a being stronger than you. Slowly, the corpse lying inside the freezing cabinet started to crumble to dust and in a few seconds it was completely gone, turned into a pile of dust. But her lingering voice still sounded throughout the room. I will have my revenge, and like the kings before, you will be defeated by your own son. Chapter 2. Nana. Cried a little boy no older than 5 years of age, as he ran as fast as his little legs could carry him. I'm done with the flowers. The boy's blue eyes twinkled with joy as he handed a small basket full of flowers to his grandmother, who was smiling down at him lovingly. Can I go pick more? No, this will be enough for today, Naruto-chan. After decades of living in Japan, Rhea had come to use some of their suffixes when speaking, especially the ones that were cute endearments. Let's go inside and have some lunch. The Titaness picked up her smiling grandson and headed back into her mansion, which was the only home on the small island. I made your favorite today. Little Naruto beamed and rested his head on Rhea's shoulder. I love you, Nana. Rhea gave a soft giggle and kissed the boy's cheek. I love you too, baby. For the past 5 years Rhea, along with her little grandson, lived peacefully on a small island that she had bought several decades ago. It was located just off the coast of Japan, and it was a paradise on Earth. The entire island was enchanted by Rhea, so the weather inside can be whatever she wanted it to be, and there was a near impenetrable barrier that would block out any monster, as well as prevent the gods from sensing their position. Overall, it was a safe haven for little Naruto to grow up in, and the perfect place for Rhea to spoil her little grandson with all her love, as well as to train him into a warrior. At the center of the island was a very large mansion that was built with a combination of modern Western architecture, traditional Eastern architecture, and traditional Western architecture. It was a 3-story edifice that would make the proudest of gods feel at home. Rhea had enchanted many parts of the house, including the kitchen, which can cook on its own, the laundry room, which can automatically clean any dirty clothes in the homes, and the storage room, which can automatically refill itself whenever the stock would run low. She had also installed several large LED screens in several rooms of the house, all of which can broadcast every channel in the world, including the Olympus channels. Then there was the library, the one place Rhea planned to teach Naruto about their family history and the general knowledge required to function in the current world. The Titaness had an entire curriculum prepared for her grandson. She was determined to groom him into a proper demigod with appropriate manners, unlike Heracles or that immortal brute, Ares. Rhea would be damned before Naruto would turn into one of those uncivilized idiots. Naruto would grow up to be a man worthy of representing the gods of Western civilization, worthy of being called a god among man. But watching the small boy wolf down his bowl of ramen like an animal told Rhea that she had a hard task at hand. Slow down, Naruto-chan. There's a lot more in the kitchen. Rhea smiled at the sight of her baby boy enjoying his lunch so much. Ever since Naruto could eat solid food, he had been obsessed with ramen and would try to have the kitchen make it every day. While Rhea didn't mind having a local Japanese delight on occasion, having it 3 meals a day was too much, so she limited Naruto to only 1 day a week. Here, wipe your mouth. The little boy gave his grandmother a grin as his mouth full of noodles as he wiped his mouth, and it only made Rhea shake her head with a smile. Naruto was adorable, and not like the other children Zeus had before. He was the apple of Rhea's eyes. Now, when you're full we will continue where we left off yesterday. The boy smiled and nodded. Okay, Nana. Naruto had come to love stories, and Rhea had come to use stories as a way to teach Naruto the history of their family, or as the mortals would call Greek mythology. Naruto was quite smart for his age, and would often remember the lessons Rhea taught him with her stories, but he was still far too young to fully understand the moral behind the stories. Rhea saw it as a way to prepare for Naruto's future, for when he would have to face difficulties the heroes in the stories have faced. But after we finish the story can I go play with Icurus and Regulus? Rhea smiled and kissed the boy's forehead. Yes, but don't wander off too far, okay? I won't. Naruto replied with a big smile, happy that he was allowed to play with his best friends. The library was the largest room inside the mansion, and it was located in the basement. Under thick cement and an array of magical barriers, countless priceless ancient scroll and documents lie peacefully under the use of the Mother of the Gods. From the original Homer documents to scrolls written by Athena herself, Rhea would scan through each day, trying to decide the order in which she would teach to her grandson. As a demigod, Naruto's brain had been hardwired for ancient Greek, so teaching him to read such documents was relatively simple and had been going very well. Now, one might expect such a library to have the appearance of a dungeon or an old cellar, but Rhea had something different in mind. She actually installed an elevator that would reach down to the basement from the main house, and the library itself was a modern marvel on its own. The entire room was temperature, humidity, and lighting monitored. And the entire collection was separated into individual ventilated rooms of enchanted glass. The older documents would be kept in the further ends of the library, where the lighting would be toned down to preserve the writing for as long as possible, but Rhea also had her own spells in place to preserve the priceless treasures. Following their daily routine, Rhea would carry Naruto into the library and settle down in a comfy leather couch located at the center of the large room where she had made a quiet reading area. They would spend many hours of each day in the reading area and it had become one of Naruto's most favorite places. "Are you going to finish the story on Perseus, Nana?" asked Naruto as he wrapped his arms around his grandmother's neck as he rode around in her arms. "I want to know what happens in the ending." Rhea smiled and nodded. "Yes, we will finish Perseus's story today." Naruto grinned and rested his head on Rhea's shoulder. "Awesome. I bet he is going to beat Medusa so badly." Rhea smiled silently, amused to see Naruto admire his older brother so much. Perseus passed away many years ago as one of the very few demigods to have a happy ending, and she was happy to see that his life was still inspiring his little brothers. Naruto had an idea that he was actually related to Perseus and saw him like a superhero on television, so Rhea was sure that the boy could feel a connection to his older brother even though he had never seen him before. "You should learn from Perseus, Naruto-chan. He is one of the greatest heroes of all time and when you start your journey, you will need some of the lessons he learned." Rhea had told her grandson that he was in fact a demigod and was destined to the life of a hero. Though she was sure that Naruto had no idea what it meant, she wanted to make sure that he would start learning all the knowledge he would need at a young age. The little boy grinned and nodded as he snuggled up to his grandmother. "I will. I think Perseus is so cool." Rhea smiled and kissed the boy's forehead before resuming where she left off in the story the previous day. Okay, so Perseus, on his flying sandals, was flying across the sky. Over the years Rhea had tamed a fair collection of monsters for herself, and in that collection were several that had become Naruto's favorites. The boy was most fond of a pair of very large dragons that protected the other rim of the island and a pair of lions that pulled Rhea's carriage, but he loved nothing more than their children. A few years ago, about the same time Naruto was born, those magnificent creatures gave birth to offspring of their own, a baby dragon and a baby lion. Rhea had aptly named the baby dragon Icurus since he would constantly try to fly as high as possible, and the baby lion Regulus after the brightest star in the constellation Leo for his brilliant golden fur. Needless to say, Naruto had grown alongside these creatures and he would treat them like his best friends. "Regulus. Icurus," cried an ecstatic Naruto as he ran onto the small clearing in the forest his friends would usually play. "Let's play." Regulus was the first to respond to his master's voice and quickly sped over to the boy. The baby lion, who was already 100 pounds, happily pounced on the boy and rolled around with him on the ground. The lion's golden fur felt warm and soft against Naruto's skin and he laughed and giggled as Regulus nuzzled against him and licked his face. Icurus was also happy to his young master and was hovering above him and Regulus with his majestic golden wings spread to the side. His blue eyes gleamed with joy as he made some soft ruffling noises with his snout, all the while looking down at his master, waiting for the boy to play with him as well. Rhea smiled as she slowly walked into the clearing herself. Hearing her little boy laugh and giggle made her forget about her worries, if only for a little while. Oh, how she wanted to keep Naruto with her on the island for the rest of his life, but that would not be fair for him. As a son of Zeus and a demigod, Naruto had the right to forge his own path into the world, and Rhea would never rob him of his chance to prove himself. Just like her grandsons before Heracles or Perseus, Naruto would have to fulfill his destiny and become a hero, and Rhea had a feeling that Naruto's name will be remembered for many generations to come, just like his brothers. "Good morning, master," greeted Icurus as Naruto continued to laugh away. "What do you want to do today, Naru?" asked Regulus after he finally got off of Naruto. "Wanna play tag again?" As a son of Zeus, Naruto could communicate freely with any flying creature in the sky, so he could easily speak with Icurus. Regulus, on the other hand, Naruto can't speak with because of a gift from Rhea. The Titaness had always used a pair of lions of pull her carriage, so she had developed a way to communicate with them, and she had transferred that ability over to her grandson, who had taken a huge liking to the lion cub. "Regulus," reprimanded Icurus as he lightly shoved the lion to the side. "Don't be so pushy. Let the master decide what we should do." "Come on, Icurus. How many times do I have to ask you to not call me master?" Naruto stomped his feet with a pout as he walked up to his pet dragon. "You are one of my best friends and you should call me Naruto, like Regulus." "Fine, Master Naruto." Rhea sat back and watched Naruto run around with the two creatures that would normally scare any children that came across them. It would be quite amazing for any human to see such a small child having such a strong bond to these creatures' monsters in their perspective. Rhea smiled. In her opinion, letting Naruto ride on Icurus's or Regulus's back was no different than letting normal children riding bikes or scooters. It was safe, fun and a good way to let the child get some sun. Not to mention that Icurus and Regulus would make very good companions for Naruto when he would start his journey. As Rhea was watching, Naruto had jumped on top of Regulus's back and rode on his back, creating an image of a son of Zeus and his lion rampant along the beach. Icurus hovered above them, his eyes looking around for intruders just like his parents would do, which made an amused smile come onto Rhea's lips. Icurus was probably the most mature out of the three good friends. "Let's go faster, Regulus," cried Naruto happily as he enjoyed the wind blasting through his hair as his lion ran in the sand as fast as he could. "You got it, Naru." The young lion let out a ferocious roar and he sped up as much as possible, his speed sending a trail of sand into the air as he stomped through the beach. Icurus scowled and shook his head. "Don't go too fast, Regulus. You don't want to crash into something like last time." The dragon started to hover lower to the ground just in case if he had to catch Naruto onto his back because of Regulus crashing into a tree or rock. As if understanding what Icurus was thinking of him, Regulus growled and sped into the forest of the island, forcing Icurus to fly above the canopies since his wingspan couldn't fit inside the dense forest. The lion chuckled through a series of grunts and continued to speed through the trees as Naruto laughed and held onto his friend's fur as his blue eyes looked at the world as it sped past him, the wind not affecting him at all. "Screw you, Icurus," cried Regulus with a roar as he leapt over large roots and broken branches. Naruto chuckled at the antics of his two friends. Regulus was much more fun-loving, but was a little dangerous at times with his carelessness. Icurus was mature, but was a little too boring at times, except the times when he would try to fly as high as he could. As their young master, the two creatures would listen to what he would say, so Naruto would often act as the mediator, which was just fine with him. "Don't wander off too far, Regulus. Nana told me to stay close to the mansion today." "Okay, we'll go back in a little bit," Regulus replied without looking back, trying to keep his eyes on the road ahead of him. Naruto grinned as he enjoyed his ride around his island. He just loved the wind against his face and the thrill of traveling at such high speeds. The boy promised himself very recently that he would train to become a very fast runner. One day he would be one of the fastest demigods in the world and he would be known for it. The boy was about to order his lion to head back home again, but something caught his eyes. "Hey, what is that?" Regulus grunted as he looked over at the direction Naruto pointed at and he too saw a small flame in the middle of the forest. Slowly coming to a stop, the lion along with Naruto kept their eyes on the flame and watched it flicker dangerously around the trees. The flame was a little different than the ones Naruto had seen his Nana make. It was much darker in color, almost red. And it didn't flicker as much as normal ones, it seemed more calm and controlled. "I don't think we should go over there," muttered Regulus as he followed behind his master as the boy walked closer to the flame. The little boy trekked over the roots and leaves on the ground and made it to the flame. His blue eyes stared into the flames, now noticing that it was actually a hearth. Most importantly, there was a girl standing next to the flames tending to the fire. She looked to be a few years older than Naruto and had light brown hair and strange red eyes that made Naruto feel cozy and warm, just like when he would share a cup of hot chocolate with his Nana. "Hello." The girl smiled as she spoke to Naruto, her eyes twinkling with amusement as she warmed her hands over the hearth. "What's your name?" Naruto bit his lips and looked a little nervous, but answered anyway. "My name is Naruto." The boy walked closer to the girl tentatively. "Why are you here? Do you know Nana?" The girl giggled as she rested her hands on her lap. "Nana?" The boy nodded and looked a little confused. "Yeah, my grandma." "Yes, I do know your Nana. In fact, I have been looking for her for a while already." The girl suddenly stood and walked over to Naruto, who was a little nervous since he'd never met anyone beside his Nana. I now see why she went into hiding. "Who are you?" asked the boy as he looked up at the taller child. Suddenly a bright light surrounded the girl and Naruto was forced to close his eyes and look away, but when he opened his eyes, he was shocked to see a much older version of the girl standing in front of him. Now she looked the same age as his Nana. Her brown hair became much longer and reached her lower back, but her eyes were still warm and cozy and she looked very pretty. "I'm Hestia, your aunt." Hestia smiled, warming and ruffled Naruto's soft hair as she knelt down to his height. "It's nice to meet you, Naruto." The boy looked shocked as he looked up at the lady. "You're my auntie?" Hestia giggled and nodded as she patted his head. "Yep." "Wow." cried Naruto with a large grin on his face. "I didn't know I have an auntie." The boy hugged the lady around her waist and rested his chin on her stomach as he looked up at her. "This is awesome." Naruto looked back at Regulus, who was looking at the woman with caution, as if she would suddenly attack Naruto. "Look, Regulus, I have an auntie." Hestia smiled and lightly hugged the boy back. "I'm happy to meet you too, little nephew." She smiled at the lion, silently saying that she meant no harm, making him feel more at peace. "We should talk more, but first we have to find your Nana and let her know that I'm here." "I already know, dear daughter." Rhea appeared behind Naruto, a happy smile on her face as she looked at her eldest daughter. And I'm quite surprised that you managed to find this place after I placed so many layers of protective barriers around it. The Titaness walked over to her daughter, all the while taking in her appearance. It had been a while since she saw Hestia out of her child form. Mother, Hestia smiled back and hugged her mother close, resting her chin on Rhea's shoulder. You worried me, worried all of us. Rhea pulled back from the hug and held Hestia's cheeks. I'm sorry my daughter, but now I'm sure you understand my reason for going into hiding. Naruto smiled at his Nana and ran to hold her hand, to which Rhea smiled and pulled him closer. I won't let any harm come to my little boy before I finish training him. Hestia looked down to see little Naruto grinning up on both of them. So Zeus broke his oath again. Am I not very surprised? The goddess sighed before a small smile graced her face. But this one looks cuter and sweeter than his other ones and acts much more innocent as well. Rhea chuckled and lifted Naruto into her arms. Yes, he is quite special. Naruto rested his head on his Nana's shoulder. She's my auntie Nana. Yes, she's your auntie. The sister of your father and my daughter. The boy's eyes brightened and used his free hand to hold on to Hestia's hand. Wow, so you're the goddess of the hearth. Hestia looked a little surprised but smiled and nodded nonetheless. So you can do really cool things with fire, right? Naruto waved his hands around and made funny sounds with his mouth. Like make enormous flames and really cool fire tornadoes. Hestia giggled and ruffled the boy's hair. Yes I can, but nowadays I usually just like to keep small flames alive. The goddess knelt down to Naruto and patted his head. What can you do? Have you discovered any of your powers yet? The boy pouted and shook his head. Nope, I can't do anything cool. Well you're still very young. Most demigods don't activate their powers until they're older, but with mother training you here, I'm sure you will learn to harness your powers soon. Hestia smiled as the boy tilted his head and thought it looked very cute. Your father is probably the most powerful god in the world, so I'm sure you will have some of his powers. Naruto looked up at Rhea and bit his lip. My father is Zeus, right? Rhea smiled and nodded. Yes, as I have told you before, your father is the god of the sky. The boy shuffled his legs as he looked from his Nana to his auntie and back. When will I get to meet father? I want to see what he looks like. Naruto was smart enough to wonder why he had never met his father and mother. He had read in many books about the structure of a family, and even though he loved his Nana dearly, he still wanted to know his parents. I want to meet father. Hestia frowned as Rhea patted Naruto's head with a sad smile. I know Naruto-chan, but your father is very busy and must do his duties as the king of the Olympians. Rhea had not yet taught Naruto about Hera and her exploits with Zeus's children yet, and she wanted to leave it that way until the boy was much older. I can tell you that your father loves you very much and left you in my care because he wants to protect you from the monsters out there in the real world. I know, I understand. The boy muttered as he looked down, still not really happy with the situation. The Titaness nodded and crossed her arms. You will have your chance to go out to the real world, but before then I must declare you ready. Hestia looked at her mother a little troubled. You're going to train him? Personally? Rhea smiled and nodded. Yes, you are almost old enough Naruto-chan. Starting next month I will begin to teach you how to fight and perhaps how to control your powers. Naruto's eyes widened and his jaw dropped in surprise. You are my favorite grandson, so I'm going to groom you into one of the strongest demigods the world has ever seen. Wow, I love you Nana. Cried Naruto as he hugged his dearest person around her waist. Hestia gave her mother a cautious look as she leaned into close to her ear. Are you sure about this, mother? Asked the kindest of goddesses with a hint of worry. Naruto may be the one spoken about in the great prophecy. If so, in another 11 years the fate of Olympus may rest in his hands. Rhea smiled and nodded back. That is all the more reason to train him as much as possible. If he is to preserve Olympus he will need to become as powerful as he possibly could. Hestia reluctantly nodded, accepting the fact that nothing she could do would change her mother's mind. Come now dearest daughter, join us for dinner. Yeah, you should try some of the miso ramen, Auntie Hestia. Cried Naruto, glad that the adults were now talking about things he could understand. Or the BBQ ramen that is really good too. Hestia smiled at the boy's innocence and wondered if his road ahead would treat him well. Okay, let's have dinner, mother, Naruto. Chapter 3. Standing in the middle of a clearing was a young man. His blonde hair waved freely in the wind as he slowly opened his eyes, revealing a pair of piercing blue eyes that radiated confidence and control. His was wearing a sky blue, long-sleeved shirt under a breastplate made out of celestial bronze, a pair of black combat pants with matching bronze greaves. His hand was holding onto a blade, but unlike the rest of his attire, it looked more like an Eastern blade. It was a katana, a blade made by the Japanese, and it was made out of celestial bronze like his armor. Feeling the natural wind brush past his body, the young man leveled and controlled his breathing, trying to align his movements with nature. And after another minute of motionless silence, he moved. Like the wind around him, he swiftly sped ahead, his hand unsheathing his long blade with a large arch movement. The brilliant glow of his blade was still slightly visible in the sunny day, and it seemed to weave through the wind like a needle pulling on a thread. The young man spun his body around and swung his blade full circle, miraculously creating a large torrent of wind that swirled around him like a miniature tornado. Control. Maintain fluidity. The blonde mentally reminded himself on some of his personal training tips as he continued to manipulate the air around him. Create an upward vortex. Control the rotation of the wind. It appeared to be autumn as there were scattered leaves all over the ground of the clearing, and all of them were being swept into the air by the wind. The brown leaves swirled around inside the vortex and extended to the very top of the treetops. All the while the young man standing at the center of the vortex maintained his position as he concentrated on controlling the movements of the air. With only subtle movements from his fingertips, he could maintain the vortex much better than what he could do a year ago, which involved whole body movements. Suddenly, the young man's eyes hardened as he flared his power. A corresponding maelstrom resulted inside the vortex as the winds started to grind against each other and created countless invisible blades of wind. In a split second, every single leaf inside the vortex was sliced straight down the middle, and all of them fell to the ground. The young man released a sigh as he wiped his brows of sweat. He had a smile on his face as he looked around at his accomplishment. Well done, Master Naruto. After months of practice it seems that you have finally achieved a firm grasp on your wind manipulation. The young man, now revealed to be Naruto, looked above him and saw a large and mighty dragon hovering over him. Its large wings spanned at least 15 meters in length, and his golden scales looked as sturdy as diamonds. Lady Rhea will be most pleased with your progress. Naruto sighed and crossed his arms over his chest after he sheathed his blade. For God's sake, Icurus. Stop calling me Master Naruto. Over the years, Naruto and his companions had all grown. Icurus was now almost full grown and was almost as large as his parents, who still remain as protectors for their home. His strength and speed was even greater than that of a normal dragon, and his flames were, according to Rhea, comparable to the ones found inside Hephaestus's furnace. Unlike his ferocious appearance and his species' infamous reputation, Icurus was very intelligent and had the manners of an English gentleman, which would often amuse Rhea and annoy Naruto. Naruto himself had also grown splendidly. At the age of 14 he stood at a good height of 5'7" and had a muscular and lean physique that resulted from daily training with his grandmother and pets. His sun-kissed blonde hair remained the same, but had gotten longer over the years. Now he had twin bangs framing the sides of his face and overall looked even spikier than before. Sorry Master Naruto, but I am inclined to follow the traditional standards of a household. While we are great friends and companions, you are and always will be my master. Therefore, I shall address you as Master Naruto. Naruto sighed again as he ran his fingers through his sweaty hair. I don't know why, but you and Regulus are complete opposites of each other, even though you grew up together. Icurus gave a slight grunt that sounded like a scoff. Please Master Naruto, do not compare I with that irritating overgrown house cat. The blonde chuckled as he started to remove his clothes. Whatever, you know you love each other. The young man dropped his shirt and armor to the ground and remained only in his training pants, revealing his muscular pectorals and impressive abdomen. If you two keep fighting all the time, Nana will transform you both into rats again like last time. The dragon gave a shudder, making Naruto laugh a little before he started to stretch his arms. So lighten up. With that, the young man ran off, running as fast as he could through the forest, leaving a sighing Icurus who decided to pick up his master's clothes and take them back to the mansion. Naruto was a blur. His bright blonde hair was the only visible part of him as his legs pushed against the ground in powerful strides. There was a smile on his face as he felt the wind push against his body. He already felt better and more rested than before. Suddenly, a deafening roar came from behind Naruto. I was wondering where you were. Naruto muttered as he turned back with a smile. The lion, almost the size of one of the pickup trucks Naruto saw occasionally on television, ran up from behind him, his teeth looking razor sharp as he roared. He had a full mane of bronze framing his head as if it was a crown and a body of golden fur that made him appear even more majestic in the sunlight. I was finishing my lunch and someone decided to start training without me. The lion ran alongside Naruto as they both reached the beach and enjoyed the warm sand under them. Your lunches take forever to finish, Regulus, and I was working on wind manipulation today. Naruto's legs were a blur as he leaned forward and let his arms trail back on his sides. We can train later tonight after dinner. Whatever Naru. I'll race you back to the house. Naruto smirked and winked at one of his two best friends. You're on. True to his promise to himself, Naruto had spent the last 9 years trying to become as fast as possible. As his body grew stronger and more durable, he learned that he could push his legs to reach incredible speeds. Naruto figured that it was one of his powers as a demigod. Heracles had his strength, he had his speed. Even Rhea was surprised to see how fast Naruto could move. It was not every day that a demigod could run at speeds that would put cars to shame. "Come on, Regulus. Is this the best you can do?" joked Naruto as he added more speed to his sprint and added more and more distance between him and the lion. "Shut up, not all of us can run like that." Naruto laughed all the way back to his home, which only took about another 30 seconds to reach. The mansion hadn't changed over the years, just like its owner. Rhea hadn't changed a bit since the day she had taken Naruto in as a baby, if anything she looked even more beautiful and graceful. If one were to see Rhea they would only think of her as one of the most beautiful women in the world, but Naruto knew better. His loving grandmother, his Nana, was the most horrible slave driver in the world. He would always remember how vicious Rhea would be during their sword training and how forceful she could be when ordering him to train harder. But the results were very impressive, so Naruto was only grateful to his Nana. "I hate it when you beat me so easily," cried Regulus as he was suddenly surrounded by a shroud of blinding light and when it died down he turned into a regular cat. "I hate taking this form even more." Rhea had enchanted Regulus and Icurus with the ability to transform into a much smaller and less ferocious form that will be useful when Naruto would travel to the real world. As much as the mist could do, Rhea wanted to give Naruto's companion some more self-reliant skills. Naruto chuckled and let Regulus hop onto his shoulder. "You're gonna have to use that form when we go to the United States, so might as well get used to it." Regulus scoffed and stretched his legs while brushing against Naruto's hair. "Whatever, just remember to take me to battles and fights. I am a ferocious lion, not a small little kitty cat." The blonde just chuckled and continued to his way to his room, which was on the top floor on the mansion. Quickly grabbing some fresh clothes from his closet, Naruto jumped into his shower and let a stream of hot water relax him, all the while trying not to laugh at Regulus, who jumped away from him with a shriek when the water came down. Naruto exhaled a sigh of relief as the water ran over his skin, cleaning the grime and sweat off of him. His training, after almost a decade of hard work, was coming to a close. He was nowhere near achieving his full potential, but Rhea had deemed ready to explore the real world on his own. Never had the young man felt so excited. After listening to so many stories of his cousins and brothers taking on the challenges of the world, he couldn't wait to take on the world on his own. As good as books and television could do, Naruto wanted nothing more than to see the world with his own eyes, and he would get his chance in a few days' time. The scent of vanilla soap that Rhea would always buy filtered into the room as Naruto dried himself. With a whistle on his lips, he threw on some casual clothing, which consisted of a simple pair of blue jeans, a sky blue t-shirt, and a pair of white runners. He also had a platinum watch on his hand that had the ability to transform into his katana. "Nana," called out Naruto as he walked down into the living room as Regulus, in his cat form, rode on his shoulder. "Are you here?" "I'm in the dining room, dear." Naruto walked into the dining room, which was basically a huge dining hall with a table that stretched out to almost 10 meters. Rhea was sitting on one of the many chairs on the side of the table, writing on a piece of paper with a smile on her face. It was her usual journal entry. Naruto had seen her write countless pages that she would add to her extremely thick binder. After living for eons, it would only be natural that Rhea would have mountains of journal entries. "Is Auntie Hestia coming over today?" asked Naruto casually as he grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge. The heart goddess had become another close family member of Naruto in the past 9 years. She would often visit the island and join them for dinner, but Naruto had a feeling that the next time he would see her, their meeting place wouldn't be on the island. Rhea shook her head as she slid the piece of paper into a nearby binder. "No, she says that she needed to tend to something tonight, so it'll be just the two of us." The Titaness stood up and walked over to her grandson. "So what do you want for dinner?" Naruto grinned and gave Rhea a pleading look. Even though he was almost taller than her now, he would still act like a little boy in front of his Nana. "Well, since I'm going to leave in a few days, can I have some ramen please?" Rhea chuckled and patted his head. "Sure." Happy and hungry, Naruto sat down to let the magical kitchen do its work, and in less than 5 minutes there were 3 bowls of steaming ramen in front of him. Rhea chuckled and shook her head as she watched her little boy wolf down his ramen just like he would when he was a child. She sighed. It would be an obvious lie if she said that she wouldn't miss Naruto when he would leave home. The last 14 years, which was a short time for Rhea, had been some of the best years in her extremely long life. Naruto was more like her own son than a grandson, and she loved him just as she loved her children. And just like when Zeus left to start a war with Kronos all those eons ago, Rhea was worried for her child. "Nana?" Hearing Naruto's voice broke Rhea out of her stupor. "Yes." The blonde furrowed his brows and placed his chopsticks down. "Are you okay? You were spacing out for a while there." Rhea shook her head with a small smile and patted Naruto's cheek. "Nothing, I was just thinking about you going back to Western civilization." Naruto frowned a little as he figured out what Rhea was thinking about. He wanted to experience the world on his own, but leaving his loving grandmother was still very hard. I guess I'm just a little worried. I know you are ready for this, but I would always be worried about my little boy. It's okay Nana, I'll come visit you every chance I get and I'll be very careful. Rhea nodded and leaned back on her chair. I know. Naruto stood from his seat and hugged Rhea from the side. I promise I'll be safe. The mother of the god smiled fondly at her little boy and kissed him lovingly on his forehead. She wrapped her own arms around him and held him close like she would do when he was a small boy. It was amazing to Rhea that Naruto could grow up so fast. The 14 years they spent together seemed to have gone by very fast and she could already feel how much she would miss her little guy after he left. I will always watch over you, Naruto-chan. No matter where you are or where you go, I will always watch over you. Naruto smiled and nodded as he pulled away from the hug. I love you Nana. Rhea ran her hand over Naruto's cheek and nodded. I love you too, my little baby. The blonde chuckled and shook his head, feeling very loved by his grandmother, who was more like his mother. I have something to give you. Rhea smiled as Naruto's raised a brow, surprised that she had a sudden gift for him. I was going to give you this the day you left, but this seems like a good time. Rhea took a small box from her pocket and held it out to Naruto. What is it? Asked the young man as he gladly accepted the gift. The Titania smiled and sat back on her seat. It was a gift I have your father the day he left for the first Titanomachi and he gave it back to me when the gods won. Naruto opened the box and looked at the necklace inside in awe. It was beautiful. A simple black string held onto a gorgeous turquoise gem with several diamonds attached to its side as decorations. There was also a slight power coming from the gem, as if there was some sort of energy locked inside. It's a symbol of good fortune and I just want to give it to you when you start your journey. Naruto stared at the necklace, then back up at his Nana. Wow, thank you Nana. Just remember to wear it. Rhea sighed with a soft smile on her face. And don't lose it like you lost your shield. The blonde smiled fondly and nodded. I won't. Good, now let's finish dinner. 3 days came and passed like a blink of an eye. Now, standing at the edge of the island was Naruto along with his grandmother. Just like the last few days, they were sad to be separated for the first time, but both knew that this was something that should and needed to be done. Okay, everything is ready. Naruto said as he flung his backpack over his shoulder and have his grandmother a sad smile. I'm going to go now Nana. He tried to make it sound as casual as possible, but still couldn't completely hide his emotions, and a hint of depressing undertone slipped out. Rhea sighed as she hugged her little boy one more time. Okay, be safe Naruto-chan. I will. On Naruto's shoulder was Regulus in his cat form and he too had finished saying goodbye to his parents. Icurus had also finished his goodbyes but was still in his real form since he was there right across the ocean. Do you have your key? Asked Rhea one last time. Naruto nodded with a smile. Yep, it's in my wallet. The young man was to travel to the United States, the place where Olympus was located at the moment. Rhea gave Naruto one of her many properties in Manhattan, which was an apartment for him to live in. I will stay there for the first few days, but I will try to find the camp as soon as possible. Rhea nodded in approval. Good. Naruto had learned about the camp for demigods a few years ago. He was fascinated that there was a camp where everyone was like him, the children of a god and immortal. His grandmother told him that even though he should travel around on his own, he should check into the camp so he would have a safe place to stay in dire times. It might also be Zeus's wish for Naruto to attend the camp, but Rhea left that part out. Also remember to not flaunt your powers around. You should keep the fact that you're Zeus's son as a secret for as long as possible. Rhea crossed her arms as she gave the young man a stern stare. Hera is still going to try to hurt you if she finds out about you. You may have trained under me for a long time, but she is still someone that can destroy you, so be careful. Hera was one of Rhea's beloved daughters, and while Rhea understood Hera's hatred of Zeus's illegitimate children, Naruto was her favorite out of all her grandchildren, so she would never let Hera kill him. Zeus may claim you as his son later on when you are in camp, but before then you should try to keep a low profile. Naruto nodded, understanding the situation. I understand Nana. Okay, now get going. It's time. Rhea tried to be casual about the situation, but couldn't hide the emotions from her voice. Naruto smiled and wrapped his arms around Rhea again for a few seconds before pulling back, almost missing the sad look on his Nana's face. Goodbye Nana, I'll see you in a few months. Rhea nodded silently, not trusting her own voice. Let's go Icurus. Naruto jumped into the air and let Icurus fly up from under him, carrying him on his face, and flew towards the wide open sky. Naruto looked back down and waved at his grandmother, who waved back at him softly. And for the first time in his life, Naruto was left alone to explore the world. Naruto had flown on Icurus's back many times in the past, but he had never felt so liberated. He loved his home dearly, but after living there for his whole life, it felt very good and exciting to look down and see foreign sights. Instead of seeing forestry and beaches, he saw the vastness of the ocean. Naruto had always wanted to see how far the ocean stretched, just like his older brother Perseus did with his winged sandals, and now he finally got his chance. Icurus had memorized the direction to fly to North America from Japan, and it wasn't too long of a flight for him. His parents had been training him in endurance since he was a hatchling. The only problem Icurus might have with flying into the United States would be the humans might think he was some sort of invader and would try to shoot him down with their guns. While the weak weapons wouldn't hurt the dragon, Rhea still advised them to stay alert. "Come on, you overgrown lizard. Can't you fly any faster than this?" cried Regulus, still in his cat form, as he stomped his soft paw on Icurus's back. The dragon growled and grunted. "If Master Naruto wasn't here right now, I would have tossed you into the ocean and let Lord Poseidon's creatures eat you." Naruto was in such a good mood he didn't even find the two's bickering to be annoying. There was so much to see and so much to do. New York was only the first destination. After checking into the camp, Naruto planned to travel all around the country. All the gods and goddesses should be somewhere inside the United States, and Naruto wanted to meet them in real life, and not just in old documents, though some he could pass on meeting. "We should be there very soon, Master Naruto, and seeing that we are so close and no one is attacking us, we can assume that the mist is hiding us from the humans," Icurus explained as he started to lower altitude. "To them I would probably look like a large hawk or eagle flying around." "Awesome, thanks Icurus." Soon, the site of the island of Manhattan came into view. Naruto had seen the same sight on countless different pictures and movies back home, but it was still very impressive in real life. Even from so far away, the tall buildings and monuments looked staggering, with none catching Naruto's interest more than the Statue of Liberty, a monument secretly dedicated to the goddess Athena by her son Frederick Bartholdi. Then there was the Empire State Building, the entrance to Olympus. Naruto had a look of wonder mixed with sadness. His father was so close to him, but so far at the same time. Even after so many years, Naruto still wanted to meet his father and talk to him. Rhea had told him time and again that Zeus really cared for him and placed him in Rhea's care to keep him safe, but Naruto wanted to see for himself. One day, Naruto promised himself, one day he would set foot on Mount Olympus and meet his family. "Okay Master Naruto, we will land in that big forest." Naruto chuckled and nodded. They were about to land in Central Park. Icurus made the landing as smooth and swift as possible. Even though the mist covered his body and normal mortals might not see them, he had to minimize the risk, so he descended as quickly as he could and immediately activated the spell Rhea had enchanted him with. As soon as they were low enough, Icurus transformed into a small leopard gecko and jumped onto Naruto's back. With a huge grin on his face, Naruto landed on his feet with a cat and a lizard on each of his shoulders. Needless to say, he attracted the attention of both locals and tourists alike, but he was too excited and happy to notice. Sure, the air quality was a little lacking and the city smelt a little too polluted, but there were other things to focus on. They were standing in the middle of a rather large clearing with a large water fountain a little ways ahead of them on a wide space of cement. There were families all over the place with small children running around with their pets as the parents watched from afar with smiles on their faces. And just beyond several layers of trees, Naruto could see a large road with car running up and down on it at high speeds. He didn't know what to check out first. "Wow, this place is extremely loud," cried Icurus in his lizard form as he shook his head, not used to the loud noises in the city. "Sorry Master Naruto, but I'm going to sit back for now." Naruto nodded as Icurus crawled into his backpack and rested in one of the pockets inside. Regulus jumped off of Naruto's shoulder and looked around. "I'm hungry. Let's find something to eat." Naruto grinned and nodded. "Let's go." Before Naruto left the island, he made a list of foods he would try out the moment he arrived in New York. And at the very top of list was cheeseburger. Naruto couldn't count the number of times he'd seen them on television, but the kitchen on their island refused to make someone so simple and unhealthy, so Naruto never had one. With some human money that Rhea had given him, Naruto ran to the nearest burger place, which was not hard to find since they had a giant burger as a logo, and bought 2 for himself and 3 for Regulus. Sitting on a park bench in the middle of a very busy street, Naruto chowed down on his burger and enjoyed way more than he should have. Let's just say that despite Rhea's effort to clean up his eating manners, Naruto still ate like an animal. It also didn't bode well for the people walking, but to see a teenager feeding his cat cheeseburgers. Luckily for him, nobody bothered him with it, seemingly used to such teenage behavior. Regulus stretched his jaws wide to chomp down on the burger, enjoying it just as much as his master, but wished he could use his real form and just devour the tasty treat in front of him at once. These normal mortals sure know how to eat. I already like this better than some of the food we had back home. Well, Nana always told me that unhealthy foods taste better, so I guess she was right. Naruto and his lion cat walked all over the city for the rest of the day and it was sundown before they knew it. But it was sure worth the time. Naruto had crossed off almost all of the items on his list and he loved all of them. He couldn't believe how good unhealthy food could be, like donuts, milkshakes, deep-fried macaroni and cheese, pizza, hot dogs, apple pie. Regulus had just as much food as Naruto. It seemed that even in his cat form, he still used his real lion stomach, so it took a lot to fill him up, but even the ever-hungry lion felt absolutely stuffed. After one of the best days of his life, Naruto decided that it was time to visit his new home. Unlike the mansion Naruto was used to back on the island, his apartment was not very spectacular. It was just a normal home inside a normal apartment complex next to several other apartment complexes. The only similarity was that, like his room back home, it was located on the third floor. After figuring out how to use the elevator, Naruto walked into the stuffy hallway and slipped his key into the plain white door. Okay, here we go. The distinct creak of a door opening could be heard as Naruto peeped his head inside the room. It was a simple home. Basically 2 large squares of living space and 1 room off to the side. Unlike the carpet in the hallway, his apartment had hardwood flooring, which was a nice touch in Naruto's opinion. There was a black leather couch to the side of the room that was backed right against the wall and it faced a decent-sized flat-screen TV. Further down to the second area of the home were the kitchen and a glass dining table with a nice glass vase, with several roses planted in it. There was a small hallway to the side of the home that led to the bedroom, which the bathroom was attached to through another door. There was a very nice king-sized bed inside and several empty bookshelves for him to fill. Someone must have cleaned the place recently because there wasn't a single speck of dust in the whole apartment. Regulus jumped off of Naruto and landed on the bed. It's nothing like the mansion back home, but it's pretty cozy. Naruto smiled and nodded. Yeah, I like it already. He slipped off his backpack and gently lifted the sleeping Icurus into his hand and placed him on the bed. It's a very nice place to start a new life here. He unpacked his things inside his pack, which mainly consisted of his clothes and armor, but also had his birth certificate his nana gave him to use, and several wads of cash for him to put inside something called a bank. Naruto had heard of banks in some movies he'd watched in the past, but would still need some additional knowledge in order to figure out how they work. Then lastly in his pack was a framed picture of his entire family, which was taken in front of the mansion back home. Standing at the center of the picture was Naruto with Rhea and Hestia standing at his sides, all of them smiling into the camera. Naruto placed the picture on the nightstand next to his bed, knowing that he would miss them for the foreseeable future. Regulus yawned and rubbed his eyes with his little paw. I'm going to call it a night. Good night, Naru. The cat curled up on the bed next to the sleeping lizard and almost instantly allowed Morpheus to take over. Naruto patted his best friend on the head and lightly scratched his soft fur before walking out of the room. He was still a little too full to fall asleep, so he decided to check out his home more. He walked into the kitchen and noticed that his stove was in very good condition, basically looked new, and it probably was, and his microwave looked almost exactly the same as the one back on the island. But the fridge was completely empty, so he would have to stock up on some things tomorrow. While mentally taking notes on his list tomorrow, Naruto walking into the living room and decided to check the channels the TV had, but something interrupted him. It was a very loud knock, like someone was pounding on his door as hard as they could. Then, less than a second later, another knock came and it was becoming more and more frequent. "See coming," replied Naruto after remember what to say. No one had ever knocked on his door before and he had never answered one before. The blonde opened the door without thinking and was very surprised to see the girl standing at his doorstep. It was probably one of the prettiest girls he had ever seen in his life and that was saying something since he grew up with the Queen of Titans and the Goddess of the Hearth. The girl had silky black hair that went down to her lower back and had kind blue eyes that stared into his soul. She had on a little bit of pink eyeliner that made her look extremely alluring and cute and the same shade of pink lipstick that made her lips look extremely inviting. And like every teenager boy of his age, Naruto replied with a blush on his face. Hello. With his teenage hormones running wild, Naruto failed to notice the frightened expression on the girl's face and how she was shaking. She bit her lip and pushed Naruto inside the apartment and quickly slammed the door shut. "Be quiet and get ready," said the girl with surprising firm voice given the state she was in. "There is a horde of hellhounds in the lobby and all 3 kindly ones are flying over the building and they are trying to kill you." Even with years of training under Rhea, Naruto gave no better answer than a normal mortal. Huh. Chapter 4. Selena Beauregard thought her day would be relatively simple. She'd known that some monsters might attack them, but not an entire horde of hellhounds, along with all 3 kindly ones. In the 3 years she had been training at Camp Half-Blood, the only camp in the world that housed their kind, she'd never thought her first small quest would be so difficult. But the skills she had obtained with her training, she was sure that she would be able to defeat at least some monsters, but this certain predicament was a little over the top. "Be careful, Lacy. Stay behind me," Selena said with the kindest voice she could muster, and it made the little girl feel warm and cozy. "We have to be very quiet and sneak past these monsters." The little girl, no older than the age of 7, held onto Selena's hand as she nodded timidly. She had long blonde hair that almost reached her lower back, and in the brief moment she smiled at Selena, she showed that she had started to lose some of her baby teeth. "Okay, but long until we get to the camp," the little girl whispered as her lower lip quivered. I'm really scared." Selena frowned and hugged the small girl close to her chest. "It's going to be okay. I'm going to get you safely back to the camp." The teenage girl smiled lovingly down at the cute little girl and kissed her cheek. "And guess what? When we get to camp we'll sit down and drink some hot chocolates and have some curly fries." Seeing the girl calm down a little, Selena patted her head. "Good girl, now let's go." Selena's mission was quite simple and straightforward. All she had to do was to travel to Manhattan and retrieve a new half-blood to the camp. According to the details of her quest, the half-blood was a little girl about the age of 7, whose satyr guardian had been killed before he managed to take her to the camp, and with his dying breath, the satyr sent a message to the camp, issuing a request for someone to pick up the girl immediately. Selena was to rush to the place the girl was separated with her satyr guardian and take her back to the camp. It sounded easy enough, and the head counselor of the Aphrodite cabin should be able to complete the task with ease, but like other heroes, things were never that simple. Selena rushed to Manhattan and got there in very good time. She quickly ran to the daycare center the satyr had last left the child and found her without any problems. In fact, she had taken quite a big liking to the little girl, she was really cute. But almost immediately after they left the daycare, a very large hellhound the size of a pickup truck almost caught sight of them, and if they moved any closer to it, it would undoubtedly smell them. Then looking at a series of apartment buildings down the street, Selena saw all 3 kindly ones flying around in the sky, and they looked quite anxious to rip something to shreds. Selena knew that they weren't after herself or Lacy, since they weren't even looking over at their direction, but there must have been someone, most likely a half-blood that had an extremely powerful scent. "I'll tell Chiron about this later. I have to get Lacy back to the camp first." The 2 girls were standing at the block corner of a particularly long street, and just around the corner were the slots of apartment building the monsters were surrounding. The best bet at the moment was to take to the long way back to camp by circling a few blocks to sneak away from the hellhounds' noses, so Selena started to back away from the corner. "Come on, Lacy. We're going this way." The little girl nodded, and even though she was shaking, she slowly backed away along with Selena. It was getting a little late and the sun was almost completely down, the sky a dark shade of blue. The streetlights were all on, and the yellow light helped Selena maneuver her way back to the daycare, but there was still a little bit of ways before they could leave the hellhounds area, and each second they spent in the area would potentially allow the monsters to sense them. Whoever was in the apartment must have had an extremely powerful scent. Selena knew where she had to go, and she could speed things up by riding on one of the many buses heading out of Manhattan, but they were still not at the bus stop yet. Thankfully, the street still had quite a bit of people on them, and they were all heading towards the direction the 2 girls were heading. Lacy tugged on Selena's sleeve and looked up at the older girl. "See, can't we just take a taxi and get out of here faster?" Selena frowned and bit her lips, a gesture she would do whenever she was nervous. "We can do that, but isolating ourselves from the rest of the crowd might not be a good idea. Those big dogs over there might smell as much easier when we're alone." With the sound of the crossing sign, a horde of people marched across the street, and Selena made sure to hold onto Lacy's hand tightly so she wouldn't be separated from her. But suddenly, something both normal humans and demigods can perceive happened. The large car, from the looks of it a Hummer, slid into opposing traffic and crashed into a small Mini Cooper who tried to turn away. The collision forced the Mini Cooper back as the Hummer's momentum was much greater, and the whole mess was sliding over to the crosswalk where Selena and Lacy were standing. Cries of terror echoed through the area as everyone scattered away from the scene. Selena, with several years of training, lifted up Lacy into her arms and jumped away from the scene. The people around her wondered how such a girl could jump so far and high, but the incoming burning cars made them disregard it immediately. Lacy was opening crying as she wrapped her arms around Selena's shoulders, and the burning cars behind them just made her cry harder. Selena grunted as she dodged left and right from people in her way. It amazed her how slow normal humans run, even when their lives were on the line. Seeing how the people had pretty much ran away from the scene and there was no large crowd in the area, Selena gave up on using the humans to mask their scent. Running back up a street, which made them a little bit closer to the monsters, Selena waved for a taxi and quickly ran up to it, hoping that the scent in the apartment building would keep the monsters busy. But she was wrong. "Well, what do we have here?" cried a raspy voice as a disgusting smell of rotten eggs filled the open air. Selena looked back, but at that moment Lacy was ripped out of her arms and was flung into the air by one of the kindly ones. "Lacy!" cried Selena as the little girl's sobs reached her ears in the air and the bat-like monster snatched her into its arms before she landed on the ground. Selena glared at the monster and pulled out a bronze dagger from her pocket. With a slight exhale to relax herself, Selena used her most confident voice to yell up. "Put her down, right now." The Fury chuckled as she dangled the crying girl with her fingers. "Nice try, daughter of Aphrodite, but that charm speak of yours is not good enough." The hideous monster snapped her fingers in her free hand and made a huge hellhound ran over to Selena as she flew up higher and laughed. "Even though you two are quite pathetic compared to our true target over there on the third floor, you'd make pretty nice snacks for our pets." Selena gritted her teeth as the Fury carried Lacy away, all the way back to where the other Furies were hovering around. She wanted to chase after them, but the hellhound was getting way too close for comfort. The dog was drooling as it ran over to the girl, its steps shaking the ground with its weight. There was only one way to do this, only one way for Selena to survive. "Doggy, down." Selena yelled with as much confidence as she could muster. The hellhound was much dumber than the Fury, so it halted immediately and skidded across the asphalt with his tough fur grinding against the ground. It stopped right in front of Selena like 1 more meter and it would crashed into her and looked down at her with its red eyes, which looked a little bit more innocent than before. Selena was breathing heavily but maintained her posture. "Sit." The entire area shook as the hellhound rested its gigantic behind on the ground, its tail wagging for some reason. If the situation wasn't so dire, Selena would have giggled and tried to pat the dog, but it was definitely not the time. "Good boy." Looking over at the apartment building, Selena was pretty sure the Furies haven't noticed her still being alive yet, so she needed to act quickly. She sheathed her dagger into its leather wrapping and waved it in front of the dog's eyes, and much to her joy, its gaze was following the blade. "You want this, boy?" The hellhound leaned closer to the blade and really freaked out Selena, but she stood her ground. "Oh my gods, this is crazy." Selena closed her eyes and quickly ran to the dog's side, only to jump onto its back, which was quite easy seeing how it was sitting down. She felt it jerk up and stand to its full height, which almost threw her off. It was nothing like riding a majestic Pegasus back at camp, but the skills should be transferable, Selena hoped. With a grunt, she climbed from the beast's back and onto its neck and waved her dagger in front of its eyes, making sure to keep it a safe distance so it wouldn't snap her hand off. "Look at the dagger, boy, this pretty dagger." The hellhound sniffed around and tried to get closer to the dagger, but no matter how much it tried to get it, it would always be just out of its reach, just like the turtle trying to get the carrot. "Please mom, don't let me die here. I haven't even had my first kiss yet." "Go fetch." The training Chiron had put Selena through paid off because the dagger made a staggering distance. It landed right in front of the apartment building the Furies were hovering over. But before Selena could even be happy for her accomplishment, the hellhound pounced for it and dashed as fast as it could towards it. Selena almost sprained her back trying to sit on the hellhound's back as it accelerated. Her carefully manicured nails snapped when she tried to grab onto the dog's fur, but she held on despite the pain. Her body soon got used to the speed and it was easier for her to keep still on the dog's back, but his jumping over cars and leaping over streets really made it difficult to hold on. But she was almost there. The apartment building was only a little ways away. Selena looked up to see unsurprisingly all 3 Furies looking down at her with surprise and a lot of anger. They all snarled at her and came flying down, but Selena had another idea. "Stop, boy." The hellhound immediately halted like before, but this time it flung Selena off his back with a sudden halt. The girl remembered all the times she trained on the climbing wall and how many times she fell. With muscle memory and quick thinking, Selena landed with a somersault and used the residual speed to run into the building. She could still hear the Furies behind her, but she ignored them and quickly ran into the stairwell. She knew she didn't have time to wait for the elevator. "Third floor." Selena remembered the Fury saying someone being on the 3rd floor. After 6 flights of stairs, 2 flights for each floor, Selena kicked the stairwell door open and quickly sped through the hallway. There were only 2 complexes on the floor, but she had no idea which one it was, so she had to take a trial and error. Selena pounded on the first door as hard as she could, making sure to wake whoever was inside if they were asleep. She pounded the door again and again, the adrenaline pumping through her blood made her feel confident but also angry, so she was annoyed that the owner was taking forever to open the door. But in reality, it was only a few seconds, and soon the door opened. Hello." Selena looked at the young man who opened the door and was a little surprised. She was expecting someone younger, like a 10 or 11-year-old kid who just started having a scent, or someone older who would be the half-blood's parent, but someone her age opened the door. She still wasn't sure if he was the one the monsters were looking for, but she had to test him. Selena pushed him back into his home and closed the door. "Be quiet and get ready," she said with a firm voice. "There is a horde of hellhounds in the lobby and all three kindly ones are flying over the building and they are trying to kill you." Huh? Selena almost cried out in frustration when she thought she got the wrong house and she was just talking to some random human, but when she looked into his electric blue eyes, she knew she had found the right person. There were power behind those eyes and there was a certain aura to him that made her shiver, but looking at him again, Selena felt like she was staring at a 5-year-old boy. He just looked so innocent. "Do you understand what I am saying?" "Why yeah." Naruto tried to keep his thoughts in order and decipher what the girl had just said to him, but his mind was little too shocked at the moment to think correctly. The girl was just too pretty. Furies, hellhounds. Then an extremely loud bark came from outside the apartment building and it broke Naruto out of his stupor. Furies, hellhounds. Selena sighed in relief at the expression of recognition on the young man's face. "Good, you know what's going on." Naruto sighed and rubbed the back of his head. "Man, I thought I would have at least a few days of peace and quiet before I get attacked." But then, as his rational thoughts were returning to his hormone-infused brain, he realized something. "Wait a second. Who are you and how did you know I am being attacked?" "Because the same monsters are trying to kill me," cried Selena angrily as she looked up at the taller teenager. "I'll explain everything later, but we have to leave the building and save the little girl the Furies caught." The blonde nodded seriously and nodded. "Alright, let's go." Selena immediately reacted and pulled the young man out of his home, ignoring his request to go back and get something. Selena was annoyed and didn't care about the guy's phone or wallet. She had no idea he had a magic lion and dragon sleeping in the apartment that could save them almost right away. They sped down the flights of stairs but remained behind the stairwell door, which had a small glass window that could see the front entrance to the building. There were police cars and ambulances parked in the distance. Selena could tell by the flashing red and blue lights they must have been there for the car crash earlier. The girl reached into her pocket and pulled out the only thing she had left, a pink pen that she would often use at the camp. Hopefully it would be enough to use again for the hellhound ride. Silently, Selena gestured for Naruto to follow her and she slowly made her way to the front entrance where the hellhounds were still standing. Selena was pretty sure that the dog the closest to them was the one she rode on, so she waved the pen inside the building, hoping that it would catch the dog's attention, and thankfully it did. The giant hellhound came over to the entrance with its tail wagging and it made Naruto chuckle with wonder. "Wow, I didn't know hellhounds could be tamed like that." Despite the situation, Selena smirked. In the course of the night she felt her skills increase several folds. "Well, I have a special ability with speaking and I can pretty much ask being to do what I ask." Without seeing Naruto's look of amazement, Selena moved closer to the door. "I don't know if this will work, but it's our best bet." Selena made a gesture to the dog. She raised the pen into the air and lowered it down and it sat down with another thud. Selena smiled and looked back at Naruto. "Okay, let's go." "What are we doing?" asked Naruto as he ran behind Selena and his question was answered when he saw her jump onto the hellhound's back. "Wow, okay." Naruto jumped as well and landed on the dog's back and behind Selena. "Fetch!" cried Selena again as she threw the pen, aiming for the far side of the street so she and the young man would have more space between them and the monsters and would have time to think of a plan. But it didn't work as well as last time. "You're better than I thought, girly." A Fury, the same one who took Lacy, caught the pen in midair and smirked down at the teenagers. "I thought you'd be dead by now, but it all worked out for the better. Now we don't have to go inside to get this half-blood." With a snap of her fingers, the hellhound jumped and flung the two teenagers off of its back. "This will be easier than I thought. Lord Hades will be pleased with this." The other two Furies hovered next to the one who appeared to be the leader and they too had bloodthirsty grins on their faces. Selena winced at the pain for landing on her side as she pushed herself up to look at the Fury. Hades. Naruto actually managed to land on his feet and he narrowed his eyes at the monster. "You mean Hades specifically targeted me?" The blonde had read all about his Nana's eldest son and how he had a rivalry with Zeus and Poseidon. The Fury chuckled. "You are a strange half-blood. We smelled you the moment you arrived because your scent is so strong and Lord Hades knew who you were instantly." Naruto crossed his arms, not really liking the situation. "He immediately ordered your death and we will give him your death." Without any warning, the Furies all attacked at once. "Stop!" cried Selena with the most powerful voice she could muster, but the Furies didn't even slow down. "Stop, let us go." "Nice try, girl, but that will never work on you." Before the Fury could even finish, a glowing bronze blade pierced its chest. Its eyes widened along with Selena's when Naruto appeared right next to her, hovering in midair with his katana in his right hand. The last thing the Fury saw was a pair of piercing blue eyes before she dissolved into dust. The two remaining Furies were shocked and stayed motionless in the air. "Sorry, but I just started my journey and don't want to go to the underworld so quickly." Naruto was manipulating the air under his feet in order to stay afloat, and his blade's light made the furies feel uneasy, terrified. Using his left hand, Naruto contorted the air around him into a funnel, and a small tornado appeared in his palm. So take your pets and leave. The blonde flung his palm out, and the mini tornado grew in size as it was thrown to the furies' direction. It caught the bat-like creatures inside the funnel and spun them around like ragdolls before it sent them crashing into the side of the apartment building. Naruto landed on the ground and stood in front of Selena, who was still a little shell-shocked. "You will not survive for long," cried one of the furies as it regained its balance, but it was obviously injured. "Lord Hades will stop at nothing to kill you, just like he did with that girl 5 years ago." Its fangs glistened in the streetlights as it flapped its wings. "You may be stronger than the ones before, but that will not make it differ." One again, before the fury could finish the sentence, it was interrupted, this time by a deafening roar that overpowered the police and ambulance sirens just a little distance away. Then something jumped out of a window, Naruto's window, and it grabbed onto the fury and dragged it to the ground. Selena gulped at the sight. It was a gigantic lion, probably the same size or even bigger than the hellhounds, and its razor-sharp teeth bit into the fury's chest until it turned to dust. But that wasn't the end. The lion pounced at the hellhounds, and its claws and fangs made short work of the dogs, and soon there were piles of dust on the ground. "Regulus, that's enough," Naruto ordered with authority. He noticed that some people were screaming at their direction, meaning that they saw something terrifying despite the mist, and they didn't need the attention. "Come back. There is still one more," Selena mentioned as she stood up, refusing to lay on the ground like a damsel in distress. "Don't move," said the last fury angrily as it held Lacy in her arms. "Lacy," cried Selena as she stepped forward, but stopped once she saw the fury tightening her grasp around the little girl's neck. Lacy was crying. Her tears flowed like a river down her cheeks as she sobbed. Her entire body was shaking from fear as she rested helplessly in the monster's arms. She couldn't stand the horrid smell on the creature's skin, and she could see it drool from its fang-filled mouth as he held her close. She did the only thing she could have done at the moment. "Cry. I will give you one chance," Naruto said as he looked up at the monster angrily. The sight of the little girl made him feel horrible, and he wanted nothing more than to save her. "Let the girl go and we will let you go." The fury snarled and growled. "I don't negotiate with your kind. I am going to bite this girl's head off and return with more monsters. We will stop at nothing to kill you." Naruto was about to attack, but then something caught his eyes. It was a small gold patch on the fury's leg. It looked like some kind of small animal, and Naruto resisted the urge to smile once he realized what it was. The fury's mouth opened wider and leaned closer to the girl, but the gold patch crawled all the way up to its neck and bit down. The fury cried out in pain as razor-sharp teeth impaled its neck, and out of shock, it dropped Lacy. "Lacy," cried Selena as she ran over, trying to catch the girl, but it was unnecessary. The golden patch suddenly glowed and expanded in size rapidly. Soon a creature the size of a small place emerged and swooped down to catch the girl on its back. Selena almost fell backwards in shock as she had a damn dragon catch the girl and land on the ground in front of her. The dragon looked angry and its talons looked razor sharp, but none was as terrifying as the smoke coming from its mouth. "No one threatens Master Naruto in front of me," cried Icurus in a series of growls that only Naruto and Regulus understood. "You die." A scorching blast of flames erupted from the dragon's mouth and completely obliterated the last fury, its screams completely silent over the sounds of the burning flames. Silence reigned as the situation died down. Even the humans on the other side of the street stared in awe, but Naruto was sure that what they saw wasn't a dragon. But the silence was soon broken as Icurus lied down on the ground and let Lacy slid off his back. "Selena," cried the little girl loudly as she ran over to the older girl well in tears. Selena immediately ran up and caught the girl in her arms, hugging her tenderly against her chest and kissed the top of her blonde hair. "I'm so sorry, Lacy. I'm so sorry for letting them get you." Selena had tears in her eyes as she cradled the girl close and ran her fingers through her blonde hair. "But it's okay now, all of the monsters are gone." Naruto walked over to the girls and gently patted Lacy's head. "Are you okay, little girl?" Lacy remained silent but gave a slight nod against Selena's chest, which made Naruto smile. "Good girl. You sure are brave." Selena looked over at Naruto, getting a good look at him for the first time in slight awe. No wonder the kindly ones and the hellhounds all came hunting for this one half-blood. He was incredible. He killed the leader of the Furies so easily, and Selena had a feeling that if he had kept on fighting, he could have killed the other monsters without the lion or the dragon's help. Even inside Camp Half-Blood, Selena hadn't seen such a powerful demigod. Assuming he was a demigod, Selena had been assuming the entire time. Not to mention that he was actually quite handsome, and his innocent and semi-clueless eyes made him seem pretty cute. "Thank you," said Selena softly with a smile. "Thank you for saving us." Naruto blushed at the smile. Now that the battle was over, his adrenaline was being replaced by testosterone. I should be thanking you for coming to tell me about the monsters. I was about to sleep and they probably would have broken into my house. Naruto was laughing at the end, which made Selena wonder how he could be so carefree after an experience like that. Selena glanced up at the two animals behind Naruto, the lion the size of a pickup truck and the dragon the size of a small plane. Are these your pets? Regulus snorted and looked away as Naruto chuckled. They're my best friends. I grew up with them and they are my companions on my journey. Little Lacy peeked out from Selena's arms and looked scared when she saw the large creatures, but Naruto just patted her head again. Don't worry Lacy, they may look strong and mighty, but they are very friendly. Naruto looked at his two friends and gave them a look. Regulus looked annoyed, but Icurus nodded immediately. Shrouds on light covered the both of them and it made Selena and Lacy look away. But when they looked back they were shocked at the sight. If their assumptions were correct, the giant dragon just changed into a small lizard resting on Naruto's shoulder and the lion morphed into a little kitty cat that Naruto held in his hands. Selena actually giggled at the expression on the cat's face. It looked pretty mad that it had to use such a form, which she understood. It would be pretty bad for a ferocious lion to turn into a cat. See, they are very friendly. Naruto walked closer to the girl and held Regulus out to Lacy, who looked much better than before. Lacy carefully reached a hand out to pet Regulus's head and she gave a small smile at the touch of his soft fur. Naruto smiled and held out Regulus further and Lacy gladly took the cat into her arms, hugging him like a teddy bear. Selena giggled at the cute sight and kissed Lacy's head again, happy that the girl was already acting better. What in Hades, Naru? Cried Regulus to Naruto as the little girl hugged him tight. I am a lion that just killed a fury and 5 hellhounds. Not a little plushie for a little girl to cuddle with. Icurus chuckled at his friend's expression. I knew it. You're just an house cat inside. Naruto chuckled at his friends and ruffled Lacy's hair, happy that he could help her feel better. This little guy will protect you from the monsters. He is very strong. Lacy looked up at Naruto timidly and smiled. What's his name? Regulus, named after the brightest star in the Leo constellation. Lacy smiled and kissed the cat on his nose. Reggie. Naruto and Icurus couldn't hold it any longer and busted out laughing, especially Icurus who almost fell off Naruto's shoulder from laughing too hard. Oh, that's so perfect. This little lady is just adorable and intelligent. Okay, muttered Selena as she smiled at Naruto. I think you should follow me back to the place Lacy and I am going to. It is a home for our kind. Naruto nodded with a smile, already knowing the destination. I guess I could go to camp earlier than expected, especially if she is going there too. The young man thought with a slight blush as he stared at Selena's beautiful, enchanting, gorgeous face. Okay, let's go. Selena turned around with Lacy still her arms and Regulus still in Lacy's arm. Okay, let's go home. The group of 3 demigods and 2 companions headed out of Manhattan and towards the one place Half-Blood can call home. Camp Half-Blood. Hey Naruto. Get me out of this girl's arms already. Oh god, she is so strong. Chapter 5. Naruto had tried to imagine what Camp Half-Blood would look like before and he created mental images of it in his mind. He would imagine demigods training together in a coliseum under the scorching sun, battle cries of heroes and roars of monsters would reign as the two sides try to overrun each other, or a huge wall or barricade that had guards standing over it to watch for incoming monsters, but never had he imagined a giant strawberry field. Right at the north end of Long Island, using the name of Delphi Strawberry Service was Camp Half-Blood, the sole sanctuary for Half-Blood to live safely in the world. Walking up Half-Blood Hill, Naruto felt excitement rush from inside his chest. Ever since he learned of such an amazing place existing he had wanted to see it for himself, and even though he was a few days ahead of his intended schedule, he couldn't wait to actually enter the camp. We're almost there. The giant pine tree over there marks the perimeter of the camp. Selena said as she held onto Lacy's hand, helping the little girl walk up the hill. Naruto smiled and stuck his hands in his pockets. Awesome, I can't wait. Icurus, who was still resting on his master's shoulder, smiled at the excitement in his master's voice. The dragon knew that his master's journey had officially started and joining this camp would be the first milestone. Normally, the dragon would converse with his partner about the importance of their constant vigilance and training, but, sadly his partner, he was still in the arms of the little girl walking in front of them. This is pretty comfortable I guess, but I still don't like it. Cried Regulus, still as a small house cat, riding on little Lacy, who still held him with her free hand, like he was some kind of doll or small pet. Naruto walked up to the two girls and patted Lacy's head. Are you excited to go to camp? Asked the blonde with a smile. I personally can't wait to find out what it really looks like inside. Lacy gave Naruto a toothless grin and nodded. I am. Selena tightened her grip on Lacy's hand as she smiled. The little girl already crept into her heart and it made Selena want to protect her even more than before. Well, I'm sure you both will love camp. I've been here for 3 summers already and it is great. Naruto smiled at how happy she sounded. It's like entering another world. Everything is so different to the world outside. It might be a little strange at first, but I'm sure you'll both love it. Naruto nodded happily. I'm sure I will love it. You really are a special case, you know. Selena suddenly suggested as she looked over at Naruto. What do you mean? Asked Naruto carefully, wondering if Selena knew he was actually a son of Zeus. Nobody in the camp is really like you. Started Selena as she looked on ahead towards the places she intended to show to 2 new campers. Most people come here and start to train on their powers, but you actually already know how to control your powers and have 2 mythical creatures with you. Let me tell you, this never happens. Naruto chuckled and shrugged. I guess when you put it that way it sounds a little strange, but I wouldn't really understand since you are the first demigod I have ever met. Selena looked over at Naruto and kept listening. I've always known I am a demigod and my grandmother would always have me read stories on Greek mythology, so this world is really not as strange for me. You're lucky. Some of us here took a long time to get used to the concept of the gods actually existing and that one of them is our parent. Selena could still remember when he found out about her mother from her dad and how she thought he was playing a joke at the time. So who's your godly parent? Asked Naruto with genuine curiosity. Selena smiled and looked over at Naruto. My mother is Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Really? That's cool. Naruto tried to hide his blush when he mentally patted his back for guessing correctly, such a beautiful girl could only be a daughter of Aphrodite. Speaking of which, Rhea had warned Naruto to stay away from the children of Aphrodite since they like to play with men's hearts, but Selena seemed very nice and friendly, so Naruto wasn't so sure about his Nana's warning. When will I find out who my godly parent is? Asked Lacy as she pulled on Selena's sleeve. The older girl smiled sadly and shook her head. I really don't know, sweetie, the gods and goddesses just randomly claim their children and we can't really predict when they would do it. Lacy frowned but nodded. Okay. The girl was still hugging Reggie in her arms and Naruto knew it made her feel better, so his good friend would just have to remain a cat for several hours longer. Naruto wondered himself if Zeus would ever claim him as his son. Rhea had told him about all the dangers that come with being a demigod son of Zeus, especially those that come with the goddess Hera. Naruto understood why the queen of Olympus would be angry at her husband for cheating, but the children did nothing wrong, so he really didn't like how the goddess treated his kind, specifically his half-siblings. Naruto hoped that if he ever was claimed by his father, he would not suffer the same fate as Heracles under the hands of Hera. As the small group neared the entrance of the camp, Naruto began to sense something very peculiar. His sensory skills were abysmal at best, and he would never rely on it in a fight, but at the moment he could feel some sort of power that felt very familiar. It was not something that was lingering in the air, but something that was on the ground, and the feeling got stronger and stronger the closer Naruto walked to the camp. What is this? Wondered Naruto to himself as he looked around on the ground. It's like something is vibrating underground. Soon Naruto realized that the feeling got stronger when his feet stepped a particular tree root. It was clearly one of the largest roots in the area and along with the other roots of its size, it led to the giant pine tree up on the top of the hill. Now that Naruto paid closer attention on the tree, he realized that the entire tree was vibrating in the same frequency that have him such a strange feeling. It doesn't necessarily feel bad. Instead, it felt kind of warm and nice like his auntie Hestia's hugs. This tree whispered Naruto lightly as he placed his hand on its rough bark. Does it have any special abilities or purpose? Selena gave Naruto a strange look before she nodded. Yes, this tree has quite the sad story, but it is a story for another day. The girl stood next to Naruto and placed her hand on it as well. This tree projects a magical barrier that prevents any monsters from entering the camp. It is the camp's greatest protector and the reason the camp is safe for us. Lacy looked up at the tree and had to step back a little to see the top. Wow, it is so tall. Selena smiled at the girl and laced her finger with hers. Come on, there are some people we have to meet. Seeing Selena and Lacy walking into the camp, he reluctantly followed. He wanted to observe the tree more and maybe figure out why it gave him such a weird feeling. Shaking his head and ignoring the weird look Icurus was giving him, Naruto walked closer to Selena and Lacy, deciding to focus on the task at hand. Meet the people Selena wanted them to meet and explore the camp. Welcome to Camp Half-Blood. Chirped Selena, obviously glad and relieved that she made it home from her quest. The entrance to the camp was much more unceremonious than Naruto had expected, but was much more elegant, and the actual innards of the camp were amazing. The first structure Naruto saw was a large farmhouse. It wasn't as big as his mansion back on the island, but it was quite large compared to the other buildings in sight. At first, after seeing the farmhouse, Naruto thought the camp looked nothing like a Greek demigod training camp and more like a summer camp for kids. There was a volleyball pit and a series of stables for horses, much like other farms would have, but then he realized that the horses were actually Pegasi. Oh wow. Then the real eye catchers were revealed. Walking deeper into the camp, Naruto saw a giant dining pavilion with tall Greek columns surrounding it. Even with a long distance, Naruto could see a large bonfire at the center of a bunch of tables with white tablecloths, and he was absent-mindedly reminded of his dear auntie Hestia. This is the big house, the place where Mr. D and Chiron lives. Selena was still holding onto Lacy's hand as she led the group over to the large house. Mr. D is the camp director and Chiron is our activities coordinator. They are the highest authorizers of the camp and I was sent by Chiron to come get you, Lacy. Lacy looked up at the house with her mouth open as Naruto followed behind. There were a bunch of people off to the distance playing volleyball or waving their swords around, looking over to their direction as chatter started to become louder. Naruto ignored them for the moment and followed Selena to the porch of the house, which had a small table with two people sitting around it, or only one was, the other one couldn't really sit. Chiron, Mr. D, I've brought back the little girl in the quest, but we ran into another demigod in New York and brought him back as well. Chiron was a middle-aged man with thinning brown hair and bushy brown eyebrows. He wore a tweed jacket and had a bow strapped to his back. He looked completely normal from the waist up, but the lower half of his body was that of a white stallion. Chiron was a centaur, and if he was the same Chiron Naruto had heard about from his nana, he was a living legend. The other person, who didn't even bother looking up from his board game, was someone Naruto didn't really like upon seeing. Rhea had told Naruto who was in charge of Camp Half-Blood in recent years, and the young man had no desire to like the man who took advantage of his auntie Hestia's kindness and love for family in order to take her place as one of the 12 Olympians. Dionysus, a son of Zeus, an unwanted brother of Naruto, and an old drunk from the looks of it. Oh, how wonderful. Good job, child, for completing your first quest. Chiron smiled down kindly at the daughter of Aphrodite. You really have grown since you came to camp 3 years ago. Selena smiled at the praise but shook her head. I really can't take the credit, Chiron. If it wasn't for Naruto here, I would have probably died. The girl said as she looked to the side, not want to see the look on the centaur's face. Goodness, what happened? Asked Chiron, genuinely worried. Selena took a deep breath, looked back at Naruto who smiled at her, before turning to Chiron. She explained the entire quest, step by step, each idea she thought of, each minute of the most dire situation, how she lost Lacy to one of the furies, how she used the hellhound to run into the apartment, how Naruto came to help her, and how Naruto and his companions killed all the monsters. Standing behind Selena, Naruto saw Chiron stealing glances at him at certain times, as if he was trying to read his emotions or purpose of being at the camp, but Dionysus remained locked into his board game and even yawned a few times. All the while, Lacy stood silently next to Selena while she held Regulus with both her arms, lightly kissing the top of his head every few seconds. Naruto smiled at his best friend. He may have said that he didn't like being treated like a pet by a small girl, but he looked quite peaceful at the moment, snuggling in Lacy's arms, trying not to fall asleep in her warmth. At the end of the story, Selena was silent and Chiron took a few breaths before he looked over at Naruto, who looked as innocent as some 5-year-old children who would come to camp. Throughout the story, Chiron had scanned over Naruto's physique and could confirm that he was fit and seemingly well trained, and if what Selena had said was true, Percy Jackson, a demigod who came to camp just a few days ago, might not be his biggest worry after all. So, Mr. Naruto, is it? Asked the centaur with a smile. I must thank you for saving Selena and Lacy, and it is quite impressive that you and your companions did it with such ease. Naruto smiled and walked up closer to the man. No need to thank me, sir, it was the right thing to do. Not to mention that if Selena hadn't told me about the monsters, they would have probably successfully ambushed me in my sleep. The blonde turned to Selena and smiled, a gesture she reflected. And I was actually going to look for this camp soon, so coming here with Selena was of great convenience. What, you already knew about this camp? Asked Selena, surprised, a little annoyed that he never said anything about it before. Naruto scratched the back of his head and nodded at the girl sheepishly. Yeah, I've always known that I was a demigod and knew that we had a safe haven to go to, and when you talked about coming to a place like this, I assumed that we were thinking about the same place. Before Selena could ask more, Chiron decided to ask some questions of his own. How did you know you were a demigod? I was raised by my grandmother and she knew about my father, who is one of the gods. Naruto assumed that Chiron immediately assumed that he was talking about his maternal grandmother, since he was not freaking out that a demigod raised by the mother of the gods was in his camp. She told me to train in my powers so I could protect myself one day, and she sent me to come here since I was getting older and my scent was becoming stronger. Rhea had a whole backstory thought out for Naruto, and from the looks of it, it was convincing. Chiron nodded as he crossed his arms. That is certainly a rarity that we almost never see, but it is a welcome change. The centaur smiled and placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. We gained a strong warrior for our camp, and that is always a good thing. Naruto smiled and nodded up. I see your companions can change into smaller and less intimidating forms, which is good, but I will still have to see them in their real forms for myself later on, if that is alright. Yes, that is perfectly fine. Now let me ask you. Do you know who your godly parent is? Naruto knew the question was coming and simply shook his head. No. I've never met him. I see, so you are still undetermined. Naruto didn't know in what context was undetermined was used, but seeing how Chiron had believed him it wasn't going to ask. Do not worry, many demigods in this camp is undetermined, so you may find out who your father is soon. There was a peculiar expression on Chiron's face that Selena couldn't place a finger on, but Naruto knew that it was because Chiron knew who his father was. Given how Selena had told Chiron that Naruto was able to use the wind as a weapon and could hover in midair, it would only be too obvious for the centaur. So I assume that little Lacy here also doesn't know who her godly parent is. Asked Chiron as he looked down at the small girl, which made her hold Regulus a little tighter. Lacy timidly shook her head and stepped closer to Selena and no sir. Chiron smiled at the girl kindly. Be at ease, child. The centaur said before he turned to Selena again. Selena, please take Lacy and show her around the camp. I'm sure she will fit in quite well. Chiron turned back to Naruto before Selena could ask. Mr. D and I have some matters to discuss with Mr. Naruto, but don't worry. I will personally show him around when we are done. Chiron then gestured to the small cat in Lacy's arms. And please, Lacy, leave the cat with Mr. Naruto. Lacy pouted and looked up at Selena and ultimately placed her Reggie on the ground before holding on to Selena's hand again. Selena looked over at Naruto and smiled. I'll see you later, okay? Oh okay said Naruto as a blush came onto his face. Selena's smile was just gorgeous, he couldn't wait to see Selena again. And don't worry Lacy. I'll let you play with Regulus right after we're done here. Lacy have Naruto a pretty smile and nodded. Okay, run along now children. The centaur said as Regulus jumped onto Naruto's shoulder, finding a place to rest right next to Icurus. Mr. Naruto won't be far behind. Naruto watched as the two girls walk further into the camp and Chiron stepped closer to him. The tall centaur towered over the blonde, but his expression was kind and fatherly, which made Naruto feel more comfortable. Dionysus, on the other hand, was still focused on his board game and completely ignored Naruto, which was just fine with the young man, since he despised the god anyway. Looking back at Chiron, who was about to start speaking, Naruto saw a well-hidden emotion in his eyes. It was as if he was trying to think of the right words to say, trying to not accidentally leak out any unnecessary information. I must say, Mr. Naruto. It is exceedingly rare for demigods to have tamed such mighty companions for themselves at such a young age, might I ask how you manage such a feat? The blonde smiled and scratched Regulus's head. I met Regulus and Icurus when they were just a cub and hatchling. We grew up together as friends so I never really tamed them. Naruto said with a smile as he looked up at the legendary trainer. They are my best friends and just help each other along the way. Chiron smiled and nodded. It is always interesting to see such a strong bond between men and beasts and I hope that you will find the same sentiment with your fellow campers here. The centaur looked around his camp as he listened to the distant sounds of his campers training. This camp is a sanctuary for demigods, like yourself, but it is also a home for many of our campers. You are all more or less related, so I hope you will come to treat them as a part of your family. I always put family first, sir, and I am pretty certain that I will come to see this place as my home. I am very happy to hear that, said Chiron with a smile. Give Selena's story on how you rescued her and little Lacy. I can say that you are probably one of the strongest demigods in the camp, so I must ask you to tone down your power when training with some of the campers. They are also demigods, but their control over their powers is still not quite well enough to fight someone like you. Naruto nodded, feeling flattered. You are also the newest member of the camp, so it would probably take you a little time to get used to our life in here, but you need not worry, the campers here are very welcoming, and I will place you in a similar schedule to another very new demigod that joined the camp. I'm sure the two of you can learn from each other. Naruto nodded back. That sounds good, thank you sir. His name is Percy Jackson. He is probably a couple of years younger than you, but I'm sure he'll be fine company. It may have been Naruto's imagination, but he thought he'd caught a glimpse of Chiron looking a little nervous at his decision. He just arrived at camp a few days ago. It was a tragic day, the boy had lost his mother to the hands of the Minotaur, so please be mindful of that. The blonde frowned at the story and nodded. I will. Very good, now I will show you around the camp and perhaps take a look at your two companions. Please go on ahead and I will catch up to you in a few seconds. Naruto smiled and nodded, excited to see the camp. Okay. So Dionysus, what do you think of the new campers? Chiron asked as he watched Naruto walk further into the camp with an innocent smile on his face. The shaggy-looking god sighed and looked up at the centaur, just a bunch of annoying brats, nothing to worry about. Chiron sighed and closed his eyes. If only that were true. Now we have two sons of the big three in the camp and one of them is very strong. The centaur rubbed his temples as he turned to meet Naruto. A son of Zeus and a son of Poseidon, both showing up within the same week, just when the bolt had been Stellenthus has trouble written all over it. This is the dining pavilion, where all campers have breakfast, lunch and dinner. Chiron introduced as he and Naruto walked into the large dining area, hardly a soul in sight because of the time of day. Each table sits the children of a certain god, and undetermined children, such as yourself and Miss Lacy, sit at the table of Lord Hermes, the god who is most welcome to all half-bloods. Naruto nodded and looked around the large area with a bronze brazier the size of a bathtub. There was a flame ablaze inside, but there was no firewood, much like the hearths he would see his auntie Hestia create back on the island. Regulus and Icurus were also staring down at the fire, wondering if Lady Hestia had come and created such a permanent fire and if she would suddenly appear in front of them. This brazier is for each camper to offer a part of their meal to their godly parent. The gods enjoy the smell of burnt food. Chiron placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder and led him away from the fire. You will see more of this tonight during dinner, so let us continue. The blonde scanned his surroundings as Regulus yawned and rested on his shoulder, but Icurus was attentive and vigilant. Not necessarily excited, but was protective of his master, just in case someone will attack. Soon, more campers came into view, and Naruto heard poorly hidden whispers carrying the words another new camper or who's the new guy. The blonde gave some of the campers a smile, and some of them nodded back, but most of them were still looking at him with calculative gazes, especially a blonde girl with gray eyes standing in front of the campers. These are the cabins. Chiron said as his voice made Naruto turn his attention back to the centaur. These are the lodgings of the campers, and again, undetermined children will stay in Lord Hermes' cabin, so, if you will, follow me. Naruto followed the camp leader towards one of the 12 cabins he could see. Its door was wide open, and Naruto could hear many voices inside it. The entire cabin had peeling brown paint and a caduceus over the door and clearly looked older and more wore out than the other cabins. The largest cabin you see over there in the front belongs to Lord Zeus, the king of Olympus, and the one next to it is the honorary cabin on Lady Hera. Chiron looked down at Naruto, and to his ever-curiosity, Naruto had a smile on his face as he looked over at Zeus's cabin. On the left we have the 5 cabins of the gods, and on the right we have the 5 cabins of the goddesses and Dionysus, but for today, we will only visit the last one on the left. Naruto walked into the cabin with the number 11 and immediately saw a large bunch of people inside, talking and laughing, as small objects were thrown around like a dodgeball game. It was shocking for Naruto to know that every person in his sight was demigods, his kind of people, and they were all so normal. May I have your attention, heroes? Announced Chiron with a loud voice, and the entire cabin became silent. All eyes turned to look at the entrance and Naruto a little nervous while given such attention. We have another new camper amongst us today, and he will stay here. A young man, several years older than Naruto, with unruly sandy hair, walked up to Chiron and Naruto. Wow, another one, that's 2 in one day and 3 in 1 week. Chiron smiled and nodded down at him. Where are they coming from? Naruto could tell that the young man was friendly given his wide smile, but wondered if 3 half-bloods in 1 week was really a lot. We're gonna have to make the cabin bigger soon. Chiron patted Naruto's shoulder, the one without an animal on it, and gestured to the young man. Mr. Naruto, this is Luke Castellan, the head counselor of the Hermes cabin. It's nice to meet you, Luke. Naruto said as he stretched his hand out. Luke smiled and gladly shook Naruto's hand. So Naruto, huh? That sounds a little Japanese. Yeah, I grew up very close to Japan, and my grandmother gave me a local name. Chiron smiled and stepped back. I see you are in good hands, Mr. Naruto, so I will leave you with Luke now. If you have any questions I am sure he will be able to answer you. Naruto nodded and Chiron turned back. Every person in the cabin bid him farewell and he left. Chatter resumed in the cabin as Luke smiled at Naruto. Okay man, this cabin is fairly small for so many people, so you're gonna have to take a sleeping bag like some of the others. Naruto nodded, feeling a little interest to use a sleeping bag since he's never even seen one before. You will be over there near the back of the room. The little girl who is also new will get a small bed to the side since she really young, but you and the other guy who came here a few days ago will have a place on the floor. Sure, that sounds okay to me. Naruto looked around to see if Selena or Lacy were anywhere in the room, but he didn't see them. Instead, he saw a young man walking over to his direction. He had black hair and green eyes and looked to be a couple of years younger than him. Ah good, Naruto, this is Percy Jackson, the other new kid in camp. Naruto smiled and nodded at the younger boy, who smiled back. "Hello Percy, Chiron said he placed me into a similar schedule as you so we can get used to the camp together." Naruto offered his hand and Percy shook it with a smile. "I look forward to training with you." "I look forward to it too, but I'm not really good at this stuff," Percy replied with a sheepish smile. "Oh, you'll get better soon," Luke said as he patted Percy's arm. "Okay Naruto, I'll grab you some things so you can settle in properly. Feel free to look around and talk to people. Don't worry, some of us might look like thieves, but we're all pretty nice." Naruto chuckled and nodded. "Sure, thanks Luke." As Luke left the cabin, Naruto looked around and eventually laid eyes on the large bonfire in the cabin area. There was a little girl tending to the fire and she looked directly at him with a warm and loving smile on her face. Naruto immediately felt better and wanted to run out to hug her, but the girl placed an finger to her lips and winked at him, making him understand. "Just checking in on you, little nephew." Naruto chuckled and nodded before turning back to his new cabin mates. He struck up a casual conversation with Percy while they waited for Luke to come back and all the while, Naruto wondered how his life would change in the camp. Unknown to the son of Zeus, there was a storm brewing and he could be caught right in the middle of it. Chapter 6. Naruto didn't know where he was. He'd never seen such a place in his life. It was dark, extremely so, but for some reason he could still see. Well, not necessarily see, but he could sense everything around him: the cold limestone walls, the frozen water on the ground, and an extremely large root creeping into the strange hollow tavern that he was standing in. There was some sort of energy coming from the root, as if it was the very root of the earth and was its life force, the link that gave the earth nutrients. It made Naruto feel oddly calm and at peace, just like he would feel while flying in the sky, but even stronger. "Where am I?" wondered Naruto to himself as he looked around in the darkness. "So you have finally come to me, my dear son." A warm and loving voice boomed through the darkness, but Naruto knew that it was speaking to him telepathically. The voice made Naruto feel at home and cozy, like when he would speak with Rhea and Hestia, but was this rather peculiar to say to the least. "I have yearned to see you with my own eyes. You have grown into a fine young man and I am proud to see you with such power." "Who are you?" spoke Naruto through his mind as he continued to turn around, trying to catch a glimpse of the owner of the voice. "I am your mother, dear son, and you have finally come to see me." "I can't see you," Naruto replied as he stopped turning, now focusing on listening to the voice. He had never known who his mother was, not even Rhea told him. "Are you really my mom? Where are you?" "I'm sorry my son, but I do not have a true form for you to see right now." The voice sounded genuinely sad and it made Naruto frown. "My true body is asleep at the moment and I can only use a small part of my consciousness to speak with you." Naruto's mind reeled. His mother was supposed to be human, so why did this sound so supernatural? "I love you, son, I really do, and I hope to see you someday when I am fully awake." The voice's words sound truly loving and it made Naruto feel very cozy and loved. "Can you tell me your name?" "Not at the moment, dear son. Names have power and when you are ready I will tell you my name, but I would prefer you call me mother." The voice seemed to sound happy and optimistic. "One day you will awaken my blood and when that day comes, the day when you gain power beyond your most wild imagination and surpass even the greatest gods, you will know my name and we will finally be able to meet in person." Naruto really wanted to finally call someone mom, but it felt really weird and oddly uncomfortable to call a random voice mom. The voice sounded loving and caring, but it also sounded ancient and powerful, as if it was some sort of primal power was speaking from the origin of the earth. Even Rhea did not sound so powerful, and Naruto had seen his Nana angry, not a sight he wouldn't care to see again. Then there was the strange notion about him gaining incredible power. That just sounded overly suspicious and malicious. "I understand your reluctance to call me mother, but soon you will come to accept this." Naruto felt the world around him shake violently, and he was having a hard time staying on his 2 feet. For some reason he couldn't mold the air around him and hover. "Our time here is limited, so I will leave further explanation to the next time we meet. Remember, dear son, I love you." The ground was starting to crack and the frozen water was breaking apart, but the ceiling of the place was even worse. Naruto felt cracks run deep across the rocky ceiling and with a loud rumble, rocks came tumbling down. Naruto tried to move, but the ground was far too unstable and he couldn't get any proper footing and the air was not responding to him. His senses seemed to be the only working part of his body, so he knew perfectly that a large rock was falling towards him and it was going to crush him. Naruto woke up with his heart beating like he'd sparred with his Nana and his shirt was wet from cold sweat. Reality came rushing back to his mind. He remembered that it was his first day in Camp Half-Blood and he'd nodded off while testing out his sleeping bag. Sleeping on the floor with only a thin sleeping bag as support did not feel comfortable, but given how tired Naruto was after a night of traveling, fighting and walking, he'd fallen asleep within seconds of lying down. The dream he had seemed almost distant already, but it was far too distinct to forget and he had a feeling that it was not just a normal dream. Well, look who decided to wake up. Naruto sat up from his sleeping bag while rubbing his eyes, trying to rid himself of his grogginess. His eyes refocused and he looked up to see Luke standing above him with his arms crossed. Percy was right next to him with an amused smile on his face. Naruto looked out the entrance and saw that it was sunset. The orange glow of the sun covered the camp like a warm blanket. His brother Apollo must have been driving his chariot to nearly the end of the earth, Naruto mused as he stretched his arms. Sorry, I guess I was more tired than I thought. Naruto stood from the ground and realized that he felt much better after the nap, despite the strange dream. Is there something that I should be doing? He asked when he noticed that the cabin was empty except for them, even Icurus and Regulus were gone. Everyone's left for the dining pavilion. It's dinner time, so let's get going now if you want something to eat. Luke chuckled as Naruto smiled and nodded. Come on, we all sit at the Hermes table. Naruto followed Luke out of the cabin and the three of them headed down to the dining area and even from this distance, Naruto could hear his fellow campers' laughter and chatter. The son of the sky god did feel hungry, especially after his nap, and he got his normal hankering for ramen or maybe some of his Auntie Hestia's homemade cookies. He looked around and wondered if the goddess of the heart was still around, but he didn't see her. After that weird dream, Naruto had an urge to contact his nana or his aunt and consult with them. After all, it was not every day a demigod would dream of a weird voice claiming to be his mother. There was a chance that it was only a random dream that was a bit more peculiar than his usual ones about ramen, but the reality and vividness of it was still bothering him. You okay, Naruto? Asked Percy when he saw that the new camper had a strange expression on his face. You were zoning out for a while. Yeah, Naruto replied as he gave the younger teenager with a smile. I just had a weird dream. Percy had his own strange look that came onto his face as he heard about a weird dream, as if he'd been going through the same thing. Here we are. Announced Luke as they walked into the dining pavilion. The entire area was filled with people, but not all the tables were used. The tables of Zeus, Poseidon, Hera and Artemis were all empty and the Hermes table was filled with people. Naruto wondered if they even had enough space to sit down. The entire courtyard turned to look at Naruto, curious about the third new camper in 1 week. The blonde felt a little weird with so many people looking at him, but fortunately, they looked away and turned back to their meals after a short while. Luke led Percy and Naruto to the Hermes table and the group made room for the three. Naruto received a plate full of food fruits, salads, and an extra lean slice of roast beef. It didn't look nearly as good as his ramen, but it was still pretty appetizing. Come on, we have to make our offerings. Percy followed Luke as the entire table walked over to the large brazier and offered a part of their food to the fire. Naruto gave a look of understanding to his two cabin mates and followed along, standing at the far back since he was the newest member there. Then Naruto felt someone tug at his sleeve and he turned back to see little Lacy smiling up at him with Regulus sitting on her shoulder. The blonde had almost forgotten that the little girl was also in the Hermes cabin since she hadn't been claimed yet. Hey Lacy, how are you feeling? Asked Naruto kindly as he messed up her hair. The girl giggled and beamed up at the older camper. I love this camp already. Lacy pointed over to a different line of campers and Naruto saw that all of them boys and girls looked like some of the movie stars he saw the few times he watched television. Selena and her siblings are very nice. They treated me very well. Naruto smiled. That's great. The blonde looked back over to the other line and right at the front, like Luke was in his line, was Selena and she smiled over at him when she saw him looking at her. The girl had changed into different clothes now, which consisted of an orange t-shirt with Camp Half-Blood written on it and a pair of skinny blue jeans. Somehow she made such simple clothing look glamorous. Naruto waved back at the girl with a smile, attracting some of her cabin mates' attention and causing a series of giggles and chatter to brew in the Aphrodite's line. Do you like Selena, Naruto? Asked Lacy as they both moved ahead as the line progressed. Naruto looked down at the girl and shrugged, yeah, of course I like her. Like her as in like her? Seeing the confused look on Naruto's face, Regulus sighed and shook his whiskered head. Naru, she's asking if you are interested in making that Selena girl your mate. Naruto immediately blushed like a tomato and shook his head. And not like that, I just find her really kind and pretty. Lacy giggled up at his expression and Regulus shook his head and slept back on Lacy's shoulder. Whatever, let's just give our offerings and eat. Lacy smiled prettily as she patted Reggie's head and kissed his soft fur, making him purr a little. Selena appeared to have seen the scene, although she wouldn't have been able to hear the conversation, she was giggling herself as she walked back to her table, smiling at Lacy as she did. After another few people had finished the offering, it was Naruto's turn. The blonde walked up to the flames and brushed the juiciest part of his roast beef into the brazier. Well, I've never really offered you anything, father, but here you go. I hope you like roast beef. Naruto smiled as they watched his offering burn, but he also brushed a part of his salad into the fire. I remember you really like this kind of salad, Auntie Hestia, so here you go. Naruto waited for little Lacy to finish before they both walked back to the table. Luke had saved them 2 seats and they all started on their dinner. Naruto took the time to meet some of the other boys around them and he was introduced to 2 of Luke's half-brothers, Connor and Travis Stoll. Naruto thought they were pretty funny, but they looked completely different from Luke. Lacy was a little shy to the other people, but she did answer some of the questions people asked her, and it may have been Naruto's imagination, but he saw Regulus act protective of the little girl when Connor and Travis teased her a little. So Naruto, did any monsters ever attack you when you were in Japan? Asked Luke as he finished his plate. Naruto shook his head and sipped on his goblet of tea. Not really, there were some strange things I would see, but they never really did anything. You're lucky, muttered Lacy. Monsters started to attack me last year and they almost killed my dad. Yeah, monsters usually start attacking us demigods when we turn 9 or 10 and it gets really dangerous. Luke leaned onto the table and remembered the times he was first attacked by monsters. Many people here can share that fear and I'm sure a lot of us wouldn't have survived if it wasn't for the camp. Naruto remained silent as he realized just how lucky he had been. Monsters didn't dare his dragon-protected home. No monsters would attack the home of the Titanus Ray, not unless they really yearned to go to Tartarus. Because of that, Naruto had the chance to grow up happily and loved without monsters trying to kill him. Most monsters wouldn't really threaten him now since his powers have been developed, but he couldn't even imagine what it would have been like if he was alone in a city with no one to train him, like so many others were. So, are you 2 used to being in camp yet? Asked a sudden voice that broke Naruto out of his thoughts. Lacy stood from her seat and hugged Selena, happy that she was here, Selena. Naruto smiled and nodded. I already like it here. Selena smiled back. That's great, but it should be easier for you to get used to this stuff. The girl hugged Lacy back as she answered, and her fingers would absent-mindedly comb through the little girl's blonde hair. Tomorrow you and Lacy would start to train with the rest of us, so remember to get a good night's sleep. I will. The blonde replied gladly. Congrats on completing your first quest, Selena, Luke said with a kind smile. Chiron told me it was not an easy quest. Selena shook her head and smiled back. Thanks Luke, but it was mostly Naruto's credit. He was the one who killed the monsters. Luke and the rest of the table looked over at Naruto. Really, you already know how to fight, Naruto. Before Naruto could answer, Lacy jumped in. Yeah, Naruto killed that flying monster and Reggie killed the hellhounds. Lacy was patting Regulus's head as she said it, making the people around her look confused. And Icurus killed the other flying monster. Well, I'm glad to have you on our capture the flag team. Luke smiled and crossed his arms. You'll be a good addition to our team, given that you aren't claimed by Friday. Seeing the confused look on Naruto's face, Luke elaborated. Every Friday the camp does a capture the flag game and the cabins compete against each other to get the other team's flag. Naruto chuckled and looked excited. That sounds like fun. Luke chuckled and nodded. It is. I don't really look forward to it, muttered Percy as he finished his blue drink. I have to deal with a horde of Ares' kids trying to beat me to death. The black-haired boy shivered as he looked over to the Ares table, which was filled with butch and mean-looking kids that ate like barbarians. Naruto didn't know what Percy was talking about, but Selena's giggle tore his attention away from the other kid. Don't worry too much, Percy. Clarice was mad at you for using toilet water to spray her, but I'm sure she won't kill you. Great. Ow. The entire Hermes table, along with Selena and most of the other campers, looked over at Connor Stoll, who was holding his right index finger, which was clearly bleeding. What in Hades is the problem with your cat, Lacy? Lacy was eating her dinner and didn't know what was happening, so she just shrugged. I don't know, and Reggie is Naruto's cat. Regulus, what did you do that for? Naruto asked, concerned about the son of Hermes. This loser tried to steal a part of the girl's dinner, so I taught him a lesson. You shouldn't steal from a little girl, Connor. Naruto gave the other teenager a sharp look, making Connor recoil back a little. Selena sighed and just patted Lacy's head. You just can't help yourself, can you, Connor? The beauty kissed Lacy's head and hugged her to close. I can't believe my cute little Lacy will have to live in your cabin until she gets claimed. Lacy giggled and nodded. I can't wait to be claimed. What happens when you get claimed, anyway? Asked Naruto as he returned to his dinner, his hands quickly scooping the salad into his mouth. It depends, really, replied Luke. Usually a symbol of your godly parent will appear over your head and it marks your identity as their child. Selena nodded, but my mother has a different way of doing things. How so? Well. A red glow tore away the attention of everyone around the table. With no warning at all, Lacy's body was shrouded with a ruby haze as a small holographic dove hovered over her head. Regulus leaped from the girl's shoulder and onto Naruto's head, lying casually on his blonde hair as he watched a strange phenomenon. Exactly like that. Now the light had attracted everyone's attention, and the whole pavilion was staring over at the Hermes table, with the Aphrodite table all standing up with smiles on their faces. As the light died down, Naruto, Regulus and Percy were shocked to see what happened to the little girl. "Whoa, what happened?" muttered Lacy as she rubbed her eyes, wondering why she felt a little strange a second ago. Naruto tilted his head to the side with Regulus still on his head, "All her clothes are different." Selena giggled at Naruto's expression and shocked tone, but was also overjoyed at the sight. Instead of a pair of simple jeans and an orange t-shirt, Lacy's clothes had changed into a beautiful little white dress. She looked like a little princess with her blonde hair curled up into two pigtails. She even appeared to have small amounts of makeup on her face. "You've just been claimed, Lacy." The little girl looked up at Selena, surprised, "Really?" Chiron stood from his own table and placed his arm across his chest. "All hail Lacy Waters, daughter of Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty." At once, everyone in the pavilion bowed the heads to Lacy, and Naruto followed suit. The little girl looked a little shy and shocked being the center of attention. Lacy looked back to Selena, who smiled down at her after she bowed. "Aphrodite, does that mean?" "Yep." Selena happily lifted Lacy into her arms and kissed her on the cheek. "You are my little sister, a daughter of Aphrodite." All of the other Aphrodite children ran over to the Hermes table and all smiled or patted Lacy's head. "I had a feeling that you would be one of us since you are so cute." Lacy smiled happily and she leaned into Selena. "So you're my real big sister?" Selena laughed happily and nodded. "Yes, we are all your big brothers and sisters." The other Aphrodite children nodded along and some of them kissed her lovingly on the cheek. "Now let's get your things out of the Hermes cabin and into our home." Naruto smiled as he watched Selena and her siblings walk away with Lacy in her arms. The girl looked very happy with all her older siblings and was the new favorite of the Aphrodite cabin. From where he was sitting, Naruto could still hear Lacy asking Selena a question, "Do you think Naruto could be our brother?" Regulus heard it too and smiled, "I wonder if that Selena girl would be disappointed if you turned out to be her brother." Naruto sighed at his friend and just returned to his dinner. "I'm not answering that." After dinner, everyone at camp started to assemble around the main hearth with the children of Apollo gathering front and center with their various instruments. After cutely asking Naruto for Regulus, Lacy sat along her new siblings on the pavilion with the lion purring on her lap as she scratched his back. It was fun for Naruto to watch his lifelong friend being passed around by the daughters of Aphrodite. Regulus said he was annoyed, but he looked very happy having his back and belly scratched by a group of gorgeous girls. "Hey Naruto, where are you going?" asked Percy when he saw his new cabin mate leave the pavilion. The blonde smiled, "I'm just going to walk around. I like to take a stroll after dinner." But the wave, the son of Zeus walked away from the son of Poseidon, intent of exploring the place he had heard so much about. He could still remember imagining what the camp looked like when he was still a child living at his grandmother's island, and he had to admit that the camp looked much more casual and modern than he had expected. In his mind, the camp would look more like an ancient Greek city like Athens or Sparta, but he liked the cozy and homely feeling. Naruto understood the significance of the camp to the other demigods, and it was nice to be a part of a home for so many distant cousins. After a few silent minutes, Naruto absent-mindedly made his way to the edge of the camp, where the tall pine tree stood proud as a beacon of protection. He couldn't help but be reminded of his dream and the large root that had an unfathomable amount of power running through it. That voice and the scenery were oddly eerie, and Naruto knew he should consult with his grandmother or aunt about it soon. He knew demigods were supposed to have very peculiar dreams, and he couldn't figure what his meant. It just didn't make sense that his birth mother would be any more than human. He was a demigod, after all. "What are you doing here?" Naruto was broken from his thoughts and turned toward the sudden voice. "Oh, hello there." It was a blonde girl, one he had seen around the camp throughout the day. She looked young, probably a few years younger than him, and had a pair of gray eyes that seemed intelligent and confident. She had almost the same shade of blonde hair as he did, but it was tamed and neatly tied into a ponytail that fell over one shoulder. "Sorry to bother you, I'm just taking a walk." The girl gave a small smile, "I don't mean to come off rude, but no one really comes out here this time of night." Naruto looked up at the tree and sighed, "For some reason I feel some sort of connection to this tree, and I just want to take a closer look." He smiled at the curious gaze of the girl and extended his hand, "I'm Uzumaki Naruto, nice to meet you." "Annabeth Chase," replied the girl with a firm handshake. "What kind of connection do you feel?" Naruto shrugged, "I'm not sure, but I feel this soft vibration that comes from this tree. It's almost like I share the same power as the tree." Annabeth narrowed her eyes, "I heard about you from Chiron. You're the one who helped Selena on her quest and defeated some monsters." She crossed her arms, "He also mentioned that you can use some wind powers, right?" The look in Annabeth's eyes looked a little unnerving. Yeah, I've always been able to. After a brief moment of silence, Annabeth sighed, this tree has a long story, a sad story. She looked over at Naruto, a frown marring her face, we don't like to bring it up. It is just a tragedy. She ran her fingers delicately on the tree bark, this tree is the source of the protective barrier around the camp, but it hasn't always been here. A few years ago, a group of demigods were coming to camp to find a home where they could be safe, but they were being chased down by an army of hellhounds and cyclops. The strongest demigod in the group was a daughter of Zeus, and she decided to fend off the monsters on her own, so her friends could make it to camp on time. Annabeth bit her lower lip as her grey eyes steeled, she paid the ultimate price for her friends and all other demigods who need this camp. Naruto gritted his teeth and glared at the ground, what happened after? Lord Zeus took pity for his daughter, and he transformed her dying body into this tree. Annabeth closed her eyes and sighed, he gave her the power to protect her loved one after death, and she will continue to stand on guard for all demigods that come after. Do wish I could have met her. Annabeth stared at Naruto, at his electric blue eyes that looked exactly like those of her late best friend, I think she would have wished to meet you, too. She sighed and wiped her eyes before turning away, sorry if this story ruined your first night at camp, but it's a story every camper should know. Naruto nodded as she continued, I'm going back now, and you should as well. Lights out at 11 o'clock. Naruto nodded, still looking at his sister's tree, wait. Annabeth looked back as he spoke, what was her name? Thalia, her name was Thalia Grace. Thank you. Good night Annabeth. The girl nodded and walked away, good night Naruto. Naruto stepped close to the tree and gently placed his hand on the bark, feeling the vibrations run through him. He closed his eyes and rested his forehead against the trunk of the tree, softly flaring his own power to resonate with the vibration. It was his way to thank his late sister, the sister he never had the pleasure to meet. He was the lucky one that he was sure of, and he needed a way to honor the memory of his sister, a great hero. Hey sis, I'm Naruto, your brother. He sat down on one of the many large roots and rested against the strong trunk, it's nice to meet you. He sighed and ran his fingers along the bark, I just came to camp today, and I want to say thank you. You're the reason everyone in camp can be safe. You're a hero. He closed his eyes and sighed again, feeling the vibrations lull him to sleep, if only I could meet you in person. Slowly, Naruto succumbed to Morpheus's domain. Luckily for Naruto, it wasn't the same dream as before, this dream was much more serene and beautiful. Instead of a dark cavern, it was a large golden field of wheat under a cloudless blue sky. The wind was softly blowing and made waves along the wheat, a soft rustling of a tune filled the air. It was peaceful and very calm. Oddly enough, Thalia's tree was still what he was resting on, a pine tree in the middle of a wheat field. Who are you? Naruto's eyes widened when he saw a girl, around the same age as him, stand in front of him. She was dressed all in black, a black leather jacket, form-fitting black jeans, and black platform boots, and looked very shocked, as if she'd never seen another person for years. For some reason, Naruto felt that it was actually the case. He cleared his throat and stood up, his electric blue eyes staring into a very similar pair, and a head of black hair that was just as spiky as his own, I'm Naruto, son of Zeus. He had a feeling that saying his parenthood would matter greatly in this case. The girl's eyes widened, I'm Thalia, daughter of Zeus. What if Naruto is the son of Gaia? Olympians end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.